All right, good evening, everyone. We have a few interviews tonight we want to do before we start the regular session, so we're going to start those now. First up, we have Elaine Gillum, looking to be appointed to the trustees of the South Kingstown School Funds. Elaine, come on up. Right up to the microphone over here at the podium.
Hi.
Hi. So first off, thank you for your interest and wanting to serve. If you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, sort of why you want to serve, and why you think you'd be a good member.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So my name is Elaine Gillum. I have a 30-plus year career in asset management, working with high net worth individuals and foundations. I have significant experience with the tasks that the trustees of the South Kingston Educational School Funds will be doing in terms of managing asset allocation, reviewing performance, reviewing managers. I'm a recent resident of South Kingston, about a year ago. Recently retired from my career, and I'm getting established in the community. I've always been a very big community volunteer, and I saw the position and thought I would be appropriate and excited about it.
Awesome. Any questions for Elaine?
What's your understanding of what your role will be?
So as I read the application or the role to at least meet yearly, I think they meet quarterly, to review asset allocation, review performance, review managers, and revise investment policy statement if necessary.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just a comment. I read your resume, and as impressive as the financial credentials are, one of the important things that I think you could bring to that committee is the years of experience doing volunteer work with the school systems where you were. I think a fresh perspective might be in order. So you're the whole package for this committee.
Thank you.
Thank you for applying.
Yes, thank you very much for wanting to take an active role in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. You should find out hopefully tonight.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, next up we got Michael Henry, looking to be reappointed to the Library Board of Trustees.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, Michael, and thank you for your service.
Sure.
And
You too.
want to tell us a little bit about some of the challenges you've faced, some of the accomplishments you've had on the board, and sort of where you see things going.
Sure. I started with the Library Board of Trustees during the pandemic. So the library facilities were closed. We were meeting remotely through Zoom and all that, and we were starting to sort of slowly emerge from the pandemic. That was a big challenge. It's also a challenge helping Laurel, the director, with decision making regarding some of the higher expenses of the library, such as facilities. These are beautiful buildings, but they're old and they require work, and we help to make those decisions regarding where to look for resources and things like that. The overarching challenge is probably also making sure the library maintains its place as a valuable resource within the community, as community needs change.
All right. Well, we're excited about the improvements to be made at the Peacedale Library to the second floor. That's going to be big.
That's going to be great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that too.
I also want to thank you for any role you had in advocating for the Kingston Library and raising its status when we were at risk for the parking spaces.
Oh yeah, the parking is an issue there, and what is constantly an issue there also is just safety about getting across.
138.
Is it the campus drive there?
Yes.
So that's constantly an issue, and the president of our board Tim has just been
Yeah.
outstanding on that.
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
Just a comment.
Yeah.
I think I love the library. I'm a big fan. And the other day I was in there and noticed that there was a box for people to put tattered American flags, which I thought was really awesome. And
Yeah.
it just kind of goes to show how many services the library provides that a lot of people don't know about. So if anybody has a flag that is sitting in their garage and they don't know how to respectfully dispose of it, there is a box at the Kingston Library.
That's great. One of my favorite services people don't know about is the parking lot Wi-Fi, 24 hours a day.
Yes.
If you're in your car and you have a laptop and you need a Wi-Fi signal, you can just park outside of it.
That was really helpful during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you all, everyone. Have a good night.
All right, we're going to take about a 10-minute recess before we get things going at 7:30. Unless we have any questions from the members for the town manager before we get things going, or for the solicitor. All right, we're going to take about a 10-minute recess.
Yeah. I like this experimental side of you. Oh, excuse me. Thank you. Where'd you stay? Oh, nice. Did you have a
All right, everyone, we're going to get things going here. First off, good evening. Welcome to Town Hall. Today is Tuesday, August 15th. We're here for our regularly scheduled Town Council meeting. First order of business, as always, a pledge of allegiance to the flag. Next on the agenda is the land acknowledgement statement, which I will read. The town of South Kingstown pays homage to the indigenous people and land on which the town is now located. Let this acknowledgement serve as a reminder of our ongoing efforts to recognize, honor, reconcile, and partner with the Narragansett tribe whose land and water we benefit from today. Next, we have the roll call, if you would, Susan.
Council President McEntee,
Here.
Council Vice President Marin,
Here.
Councilwoman Bergner,
Here.
Councilwoman Alley.
Here.
It is noted that Councilwoman Rose is absent this evening.
Thank you. All right, it's going to bring us to item 5, approval of minutes of previous meetings.
Motion to approve item 5A and B.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I'll just say I'll be abstaining from this vote because I wasn't present at that time. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, that passes 3-0. It's going to bring us to item 6, the consent agenda.
Motion to approve item 6.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that passes. Yep. At this point, we're going to move item 10A up to the beginning here. Letter of appreciation from Charles Bavona regarding emergency medical services staff. And at this point, I'm going to allow Jim Maney to address this.
Thank you, Council President. This evening, I'd like to bring to your attention the excellent work done by the South Kingston EMS Department. Day in and day out, they're responding to calls. They're very, very busy this summer. They've had hundreds and hundreds of calls, mutual aid, as well as responding here in town. So about 3 weeks ago, I walked to my office. There was a gentleman sitting there waiting for me. He was not scheduled to come in. His name is Mr. Charles Bavona. I figured he was there for something other than what he told me about, but I asked him, could I help him? And he said, your EMS personnel saved my life a week ago, and I want you to come in, and I wanted to come in and give you this letter and tell you how I feel about them. And I'll give you the facts of what happened, and we have the EMS personnel here along with Mr. Craig Stanley, who runs an excellent department. So I'll read the letter to you very quickly. He was supposed to come tonight, but he and his wife were both called out of state. They're Narragansett residents. They also live in Florida, and he had to, at the last minute, he had to go back. Said, dear Mr. Manny, human nature is such that some of us will respond heroically when the need presents itself. This was certainly the case last Tuesday morning, July 18th, when I was subjected to a massive heart attack. 2 of your Station Number 2 EMS professionals, Keith DeCesare and Derek Machado, responded with exceptional professionalism, intelligence, and persistence, and they were instrumental in saving my life. Some backstory. They received a 911 call and were directed to the parking lot of the Narragansett Fire Station Number 2, where I was crashing hard. My case was handed off by the EMS team assembled there, and after coordinating with my frightened wife, they decided to head to Kent County rather than South County Hospital, the closer alternative. They continued to make all the right decisions, picking up where Narragansett EMS left off. Just deciding to go directly to Kent was huge. In transit, they continued to collect and report my telemetry, administrative nitroglycerin, and stabilized me to the greatest extent possible. When we arrived at Kent, where a large emergency room team had already assembled, the handoff was seamless. From what I've been told, it was touch and go for the 90-plus minutes that the Kent County team worked to revive me. I crashed. Heart stopped, no electrical activity. Sometime soon after arriving, which underscores just how fortunate I was to get there so quickly. So there's no question in my mind that these 2 individuals played a key role in saving my life. Today I feel great, with the renewed appreciation for life and all its blessings. My eternal gratitude to Keith and Derek. My sincere thanks to Director Stanley for maintaining a superb town agency. I'd just like to call up Mr. Craig Stanley and the paramedics that were there that day. And once again, this is very nice for Mr. Bavona to write this letter, but this stuff happens every day of the year.
Thank you, Jim, Town Council. What these gentlemen did was they saved a life. They didn't just transport somebody to the hospital. They identified somebody having a significant heart attack, and we don't throw that term around loosely. There's no question without the actions of these 2 gentlemen, their knowledge, their experience, their quick assessment, realizing where this patient needed to go, he would not have survived without question. And I'm very proud of our people. As the town manager stated, we do this often. We save lives. If you go back to the past 2 quarters of looking at our calls, there's probably about 20 saves that we have throughout the community, where there's no question without our intervention and help of others, the outcome would have been very different. I appreciate your support for us. I appreciate the town manager's support. We're very busy. We're looking to add more vehicles, but I can't tell you how important that is and just how critical we are and how fragile we are in southern Rhode Island. I estimate a couple 100,000 people are here during the day. At any given moment, we can be without an ambulance from Westerly up to East Greenwich. That's not good. That's real. That happens a number of times a day. These are the things that keep me up at night. But back to our personnel, I want to thank Lieutenant Paramedic DeCesare, Paramedic Machado for doing an excellent job. And I appreciate the gentleman for taking the time to thank us. Sometimes we don't always get to talk to the patient or them come by. He came by to see the town manager. He came by the station. He was great, very grateful, and we appreciate that. So thank you.
Do you want one with them? Amazing. You're a great commercial for what's on the agenda, too.
Speaks to the great work that the EMS department does. So thank you for your service and keep up the good work. We're going to move on now to item 7, licenses. 7A is a resolution granting a Class F 19-hour beverage license to the SK 300th Anniversary Steering Committee for the Trifecta Festival at Saugatucket Park on Saturday, September 9, 2023, from 12 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. Application by Terry Murphy.
Good evening. Yes, the celebration continues for the 300th anniversary, and so the committee is very excited to plan and implement the September 9th trifecta event at Saugatucket Park, and that includes a beer and wine tent featuring some of our local breweries, and for that we require a Class F liquor license for the council's consideration. We do have a certified bartender service with tip certified servers. He is the same server that we had at the post-parade picnic, which sadly was cut short because of the weather, but appreciate your consideration of this license.
Terry, you're also item 7B, so we'll take that up as well for efficiency. I'll just read that out loud here. A resolution granting a special events permit to the SK 300th Anniversary Steering Committee to conduct the 300th Anniversary Arts and Culture Trifecta at Saugatucket Park on Saturday, September 9, 2023, from 12 p.m. to 10:30 p.m., subject to administrative approvals.
Yes, so this again is a special event permit. We do have crowd managers that will be certified in order to make sure we have the necessary safety controls in place. Obviously, SKPD and our UFD and the fire marshal have been consulted as well. That's all been detailed in the actual permit application. The site will be fenced off. It has to be by code because of the beer and wine tent. And so the committee feels very good about the preparation for this particular event, having kind of gone through a test run on June 17th for the parade.
Let's pray for better weather.
Let's pray for better weather. We do have a rain date for that one. It'll be the day after.
Just have one quick question. So 10:30 seems a little late, given like the town and the time of year that it will be. Is that the conclusion, or when you're breaking things down, will you continue to have the tent open for sales until?
That'll be the end of the event, 10:30. So there may be music up until 10:30, but
Okay.
the beer and wine tent will be shut down
Okay,
at 10:30.
at 10:30, okay.
Rain date
Yeah,
of
you did mention
September 10th.
the next day, Sunday.
Could we revise what's written here to reflect that? In the event there's rain? So you got,
That would be great. I neglected to put that in the application, so if the resolution can be amended to include the rain date, that would be appreciated.
all right. Any other questions for Terry? All right, looking forward to it. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve item, do you want them together? 7A and 7B, with the addition to the resolutions to include the rain date of Sunday, September 10th.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. It's going to move us on to item C, a resolution granting a victualling license to A&S Investments LLC doing business as Terminices Earth and Ocean Peacedale of Kingstown Road, subject to approval by the Communications Department and Rhode Island Department of Health. Application by Albert F. Terminisi III. Albert, welcome.
Yes, thank you. So we've already been in touch with the health department. They're coming next week. The communications thing I didn't really understand. I don't know what that is. I kind of got the checklist from the website, and I didn't really know what that was.
Susan Flynn, can you advise him on that, or Mike Ursillo?
The Communications Department handles the fire alarm systems in town.
Oh, I have a fire alarm company coming. They're not coming until September 18th because they had to order a different piece for the alarm that's there because the previous tenant never had it monitored.
So you guys associated with the former Terminaces? The
Yes.
Narragansett?
Yeah, from Narragansett.
Oh, nice.
And I'm not sure of what's 1283 Kingstown Road, where are we?
It used to be Kingston Pizza. Anton's.
In the Rotary?
Yes.
So it's going to be similar menu as the previous Terminaces?
I mean, the restaurant's not as big, so I can't do the full-blown thing, but there will be appetizers, sandwiches, pasta dishes. There will be, yeah, it will be kind of similar.
So you'll be rearranging the inside to make it more of like a dining, or is it still takeout?
It will be mostly takeout and to-go, but there are 20 seats inside and 16 outside, so there are seats inside to be able to sit and eat.
All right. And when do you guys expect to open?
We're just trying to fix the mess that was left with us, and as soon as we can, we're going to open.
All right, sounds good to me. All right, any questions?
Motion to approve item 7C?
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
All right, it's going to move us to item D, a resolution granting a temporary mass gathering permit to Contemporary Theater Company to hold the Wakefield Oktoberfest on Saturday, October 7, 2023. Rain date of Saturday, October 14, 2023, from 12 p.m. to 11 p.m. on Main Street between Robinson Street and Kenyon Avenue, subject to Rhode Island Department of Transportation approval for the closure of Main Street and stipulations set by the police department and building official. Application by Chris Simpson. Chris, if you're here, come on up.
I don't
Or if
see
someone
him.
is here on behalf of Contemporary Theater, I invite them to come up. Have you heard anything from Chris Simpson on this, Susan, as to whether he'd be here tonight?
This is a great event, so
Yeah.
it's just too bad someone's not here to really promote Main Street and Oktoberfest. Okay.
All right. Well, we're all well familiar with this one, so.
Motion to approve 7D. This is an incredible community event if you haven't been here. And it has participated, lots of music, lots of vendors. It's a great event. So just need a second.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I'll just say it's one of the great events in town that brings out a lot of people, and I look forward to an even more fun event. It gets better and better every year, so it's going to be great. But all in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. It's going to bring us to item E, a resolution granting a special events permit to Intention Peace to conduct the Intention Fest at Saugatucket Park on September 24, 2023, from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m., subject to the execution of a hold harmless agreement indemnifying the town. Application by Autumn Francesca. Autumn, come on up. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, hello. This event is the second annual. We had one last year, the last Sunday in September. It's a free event to the public, basically promoting, inspiring, and informing people to live a life of peace and well-being and good health. We're going to have over 60 booths. Some people call them vendors, but they're not all selling things. A lot of them are just people who have information about good, good healthy living and peace practices and things like that. We have a meditation tent and a massage tent, all kinds of things. I have a map if you wanted to see all the booths. We've gotten great support sponsors from Belmont Market, All That Matters, Thunder Mist, a few other of the local businesses. I have already secured insurance. It's already been uploaded. The certificate has been uploaded to your website for the online application. I believe it relieves the town of any kind of, liability. I believe it's over $1 million for the incident, as you requested. Yeah.
Any questions for Autumn?
So I just wanted to ask you if maybe you want to reach out to the University of Rhode Island. All the students are coming back, and we know how they've been impacted by COVID and their mental health. Everyone's really struggling, and that might be a great way for you to bring URI students into our community and really get them aware of the services and support. So I recommend that you connect.
Yes, thank you. It's a great idea. I do know several of the professors on campus, so we have posters up, and I'm actually going to be on the WRIU radio show with Ken Abrams early September.
Even if you contact the counseling center, the dean of students office,
Okay.
the division of student affairs, students really do struggle, and they're looking for resources in the community.
Thank you. Yes, you inspired me to do more for
Yeah.
the students. I agree.
Happy to connect later if you want.
Okay.
Give you some tips.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
All right.
Deborah Berringer. Got it.
Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion to approve, what number is it?
7E,
7E.
second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes, and I
See you
look
there.
forward to checking it out.
Thank you.
So that means that the whole process is going to be complete after you do whatever you need to do with the,
You should
to
be
get
all
the official
set,
permit?
since you've uploaded the hold harmless agreement, but Susan Flynn can comment here.
We will provide you with the hold harmless agreement to
Okay.
sign and provide back to us.
Yeah, no problem. And I forgot to mention, I also have a police detail on duty, and anyway, so,
Excellent.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
thank you very
Take care.
much.
All right, that's going to move us to item F, a resolution granting a holiday sales license to Eclectic Energy LLC, doing business as Eclectic Energy of Main Street, subject to submittal of a retail sales tax permit application by Pamela Davis. Pamela, if you are here, come on up. She may be late.
Okay.
All right. She will be here tonight? All right.
Okay.
We'll hold it. Yeah, we'll hold it. All right, we're going to hold that item and come back to it. All right, now we're coming to item 8, public comments. At this point, I invite anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on any item, on any matter whatsoever, to come on up and speak at the podium. We just ask that you first identify yourself. We're going to limit you to 5 minutes. We're going to try a new experiment tonight. We're going to do 30 minutes of public comment, then we're going to proceed to new business, move through that rather quickly, and then come back to public comments. So with that said, first come, first serve.
Good evening.
Hi.
My name is Gerald Del Piano. I'm the owner of 110 Sandpiper Drive down in Green Hill. I've owned the property for 36 years. Recently, the town council made a decision, I think without adequate information regarding the snow plowing of, quote, private roads. I know some of you are a little more troubled than others about the decision, but this issue was raised by a group called the Broad Hill Residential Compound Association. And essentially what they said was, why are you plowing their roads and not plowing our roads? And I wanted to point out to the council, if they didn't know already, they have an association for that purpose. They contracted for that. So that's why they don't have plowing in those roads. Much different than the situation with the older subdivisions, such as the Mawtucket by the Sea subdivision. Now, I wanted to point out that there's a contrast between the old subdivisions and the newer subdivisions. The old subdivisions, like Mawtucket by the Sea, which I'm a member of, or my home is located on, was created 75 years ago. 75 years ago, and it was created by a subdivision map, of which I have a copy here, which I'd like to submit for viewing, if I can.
Sure.
Yeah, approach? Yeah, we'll take it.
Thank you.
Take a close look at that subdivision map. You'll see that the roads are separate and apart from the lots. Okay? So the issue is, in all of this, is who owns this road? Who owns the roads in the subdivision? And if you take a close look at the land records, it's unclear as to who owns the roads. We certainly don't own them. The homeowners do not own that road. So yet we are kind of being thrust back this obligation to maintain a road that we don't even own. So who owns the road? And if I'd like to approach again, I have a document here. This is right from your website, and it's the ownership register for the lots on Teal Road, which is one of the roads that encompasses our subdivision. And I want you to look at the ownership of item I think it's item 164 ending 164, and that's Teal Road. Teal Road is owned by this, according to that register, the town of South Kingstown. So the question is, how does the town of South Kingstown own the road, yet decide not to maintain that same road? And that's the same issue that exists throughout the whole subdivision. And the history will show that. That this has been an ongoing, that the town has exercised control over these roads and maintained these roads for many reasons, one of which was that they installed water mains going into the roads and needed to access those water mains. This was done years and years and years ago, and it's total contrast to what exists with the Broad Hill Association. So, now,
Before you move on.
Yes.
Can you just
Sure.
point me to a specific spot on this exhibit?
Yeah, it's lot, if I can approach this, I think the one
Yeah.
ending in 164.
Here.
There's one that says Town of South Kingstown, almost directly in the middle of there. It says Town of South Kingstown, it's Teal Drive.
I see where it says Teal Drive. I don't see where it says Town of South Kingstown
Well,
owns it.
right to the right of that, it says Town of South Kingstown is the owner.
Where is it on this?
It says Teal Drive here.
Yes.
Where does it say Town of
Right
South
on
Kingstown?
the ledger next to it, this ledger, right there.
Okay, I thought you were referring to the map.
No, the ledger, I'm sorry, didn't make this.
Sir, We are a little bit past the 5, and I have to accord everyone an opportunity, the fair opportunity to speak at the 5 minutes. So if you could sort of clarify some of this, send us some attachments via email, that would be helpful.
I'd be happy to. What I'm suggesting to you is that this decision was made very hastily, and that it has to be reviewed, that a full evaluation of the situation has to be done, that you cannot just knee-jerk throw out and say that everybody doesn't have a right to plowing when something like this exists, when there's control being exercised. I see Mr. Marin nodding his head. Can I address whatever concerns you, sir?
Sir,
I'm going to defer to the president.
we have a procedure here by which we accord 5 minutes to each person who is willing to speak. We go over that, then we have to give that same fair amount to everyone.
If I can, address one comment that may be overriding, nothing?
If you can do it in a few seconds, otherwise we have to move on. There's a lot of people who want to speak on different issues. We have to hear
I'll wrap
them
it
out.
up later then, if I can. Is
We're
that
going to limit
possible?
people to one time tonight. There's a lot of people here.
All right. Well, is this ever going to be put on an agenda again where I can actually address the council in a complete manner?
It may or may not, but if you send us an email that'll help clarify what you're trying to address now, that will help us in making a determination whether to put it on the agenda.
I will do so.
All right, thank you.
So I didn't get what you guys got. I can't really read.
So, to help clarify confusion, he's going to send us an email that'll hopefully clarify and provide attachments. That's what we've ended at here. But go ahead.
So
Good
I didn't-
evening, council members. My
one sec.
name is,
I'm sorry. So when, I didn't hear your name, so I'm sorry. But when you write the email, just so you know, you need to get it in by noon on Wednesday prior to our meeting. It gets posted on the agenda, and then you can, when you see your communication item, you please return and speak. People are somehow confused of the cycle. We won't have a meeting. This is our only meeting for the month of August. So if you write an email now, it could potentially land on the first meeting in September, which is the second Tuesday of the month, which is the 11th.
I also
Second Monday
want
of the
you to-
month, Monday of the 11th. Sorry.
I also want you to know that you provided like two different things here. I got a different sheet than everybody else got, so just, yeah, I don't know.
Thank you. Go ahead.
good evening. My name is Mark Parsons, 53 Peninsula Road in town here. And I'm going to continue this conversation, and I thank you for your indulgence. I know the council has heard a lot from the public about this, and I think that's an indication of just how important this issue is to the town. And I would really reinforce the point that was just made. This is an issue that really does deserve its own spot on the agenda. I did write to the council at the end of last week, but after the deadline, and I did suggest that you take this under formal review for reconsideration. And I understand how we got to where we are, and I understand that the council's initial decision was motivated by notions of fairness, and fairness, of course, is the right goal, but what I'd submit to you is that your initial decision didn't actually get there. I think that the issue is more complicated, and I couldn't have asked for a better setup. The issue is more complicated than perhaps it at first appeared, and I do think that the council deserves a full record to understand really just all of the considerations that go into this decision. And I would say if you have a chance to read my letter, I did sort of draw that same distinction between the older neighborhoods and the newer neighborhoods. And I think it makes sense. It's not like that was some random biased decision by your predecessors. Actually, it makes a lot of sense. It's not an accident. The idea is that there was a point in time when the town actually was really interested in turning farmland into residential communities. When you think about our neighborhood in Bentutic Point, that was a farm. It's now 70 houses, all paying taxes. Many of them are seasonal. Some people are retirees. So it was sort of a wise, clever decision by the town to say, let's facilitate this by providing a minimal level of support to this community to facilitate its development, which has redounded to the town's benefit 100 times over what the town provides in support, not only for the roads, but for the other services from this community. So I think that when we look at it, and we're not alone, I mean, there are lots of other communities like ours, there was a different deal. Those earlier communities made a different deal with the town. The later communities, the town never undertook to provide that support. They didn't rely on the town's support. The town isn't pulling the rug out from under them as the town would be from us. And so it's a very, very different situation. And so I think it's simplistic to say private road, all the same, all or none get maintained. Actually, the town undertook to maintain those older roads, and we relied in good faith, to our detriment, on the town's conduct over the years. And when I say over the years, so I've been a property owner there for 21 years, and I think within the last year, I've lost my newcomer status. There are a lot of old-timers, right, who've been around, and as far as we can tell, the town's support goes back over 5 decades. 50 years of reliance is a lot of reliance in good faith on the town's conduct. And you might say, well, how are you hurt? Here's a change. Every change, some people like, some people don't like. How are you hurt by the change? Well, we're hurt by the change because we have no mechanism to collect funds from the members, from the homeowners on those streets. We don't have taxing authority. We don't have a mandatory homeowners association. We don't have any practical mechanism. So how are we hurt? How is our reliance, how did that reliance in good faith on the town's conduct hurt us? That's how. We didn't have an opportunity to do something else. The newer subdivisions, they had plenty of opportunity, and they did do something else. And we're not talking about, private roads that are essentially long driveways. You look on the map, these are roads. These are roads that serve the community. And it's not as if we're trying to put up big no trespassing signs or anything like that. We just are good neighbors, good members of this community who have done our level best to support the town in every way we possibly can. And really, we've relied on this. And so I know I'm out of time, so let me just say.
You could sort of concisely conclude here. I'll give you a little rope, a few seconds.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I would say that we also are familiar with the memo that the town solicitor issued. And he answered the question he was asked, but that was not compelling. I don't think that answered every single question. That was really just addressing how a private road becomes a public road. What I'm talking about is how the town is obliged legally to honor the good faith reliance on the conduct of the town over the 50 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I can just ask a question. I read your August 9 letter to the council, and I'll be honest with you, I thought you put forward the best argument I've heard so far since this issue arose. But it offered a view of history, but do you have any documentation, anything that would show that that's how it went down?
Mr. Mayor, I am so happy you asked that question, because I was going to ask that question of the town. When you think about who's in a position to do a little bit of legwork, and so I think having this in September gives the town a chance to do a little bit of legwork and sort of say, okay, how did we get here? Because, 50, 60, 70 years ago, I wasn't there. It isn't on Instagram. It's really hard, but talking to old timers, they have said, yes, we had these assurances, but it's what I would say to you is, this isn't a court of law. You are entitled to draw inferences from this history. You're entitled to say, hey, listen, we look around and these people told us what happened 60, 50, 70 years ago. You're entitled to draw fair inferences about that. But I actually think that the town is in a better position than I am personally to do that research.
And we did ask that question, and the manager talked with longtime and retired employees, and no one was able to come up with any pieces of paper. I understand what you're saying about essentially oral history, but what I was hoping was that there might be something in writing more to support that view.
I share that hope. I share that hope that there is something, and we certainly can all collectively look. But I would tell you that in this instance, the 50 years of reliance more than substitutes for the paper that we would not reasonably expect to find. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mary Layden, and I'm at 63 Peninsula Road. What I'd like to start with is I'm actually speaking for a few of the residents at the Point who have been there for 50-plus years. And, you know, there's this assumption you're near the water, you're all wealthy. Not true. Someone spoke from this podium, a taxpayer, saying they all have a lot of money, they can pay for their own roads. Simply not true. On the highway division budget, it says at the bottom about, I'll read it to you because it'll be easier. It says, sorry, of the 75 miles of private roads in the town, a limited number receive plowing and seasonal grading by tradition. The town council recently voted to abandon the maintenance of the private roads. DPS is currently working with residents who live on these roads to transition to private maintenance contractors. So here's the deal. You sent that out to individuals. In our little dense community on Peninsula and Nittigret, we have over 41 homes. And if an individual does try to plow or maintain, but the next 5 don't, it won't be successful. So, to Mark's point, we don't have an HOA. This community's 100 years old. We incorporated in 1940s as a community. So, but the HOAs were not existent. There was none of that. It was good neighbors, good, and that little point has been a bit of an economic engine for this town. This little community worked with the Corps of Engineers for the hurricane project. The ramp at the end of our property was also members of our community helped to draft support. Actually, the temporary one was often stored at our little clubhouse. So we have these people on this point that deserve to put their head on the pillow and feel safe. They're anxious because we don't have a mechanism to do this. You know we're talking about 0.6 miles of road. We're not even a full mile of road. But what I want to point out and what might make a big difference is, I'll approach just for a minute if I could.
Go ahead.
That's been going on for decades. There's no formal easement. It was just good community, right? They have used it, so the plows would go down, back up to Peninsula. It made sense to just whip around Peninsula, go up Nitigret, go back down Ocean Avenue. Otherwise, backing all the way to Deep Hole, not safe and certainly inconvenient. So I think, bottom line is, when the term fair and treating all private roads the same, they're not. There's no sign that says, keep out, no trespassing. We have been a community with walkers, bikers. You know, it's a welcoming place. The roads are too narrow to have anyone park on them. You wouldn't get any vehicles through. So it's not public in that vein. But we've been good community members. And to Mark's point, pulling the rug out in this moment in time really leaves people unsafe. So I guess just the question is, how do you assure that we have access to all of the privileges that our tax dollars allow? Fire, rescue, police, and mostly senior citizen programs, which people take advantage of. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to, I'd like to.
You know, I have to interrupt. Okay. So now it's more than one counselor interacting. We need to add this item to the agenda, and then we can all interact.
I don't know if we want to do that.
A motion to add discussion of private roads to the agenda this evening.
May I just suggest that we just let everyone speak and then we can add it later if we choose? Because this.
First 30 minutes so that we can go through, go to new business. So
Mhm.
how many?
All
It might, this might.
As long as there will be no more questions, I'm good with you not adding it to the
Is
agenda.
it possible for a photo to be put up on the?
We have to add it to the agenda.
Okay.
But you can do that for round 2 if you'd like.
Can I just ask then of the town council for a stay with this project? Obviously, there's a lot of questions, there's a lot of sentiment, there's a lot of history, and there's goodwill that is being lost, right? So I think a stay to give us more time, to give you all more time. Your predecessors, the town councils before you, made decisions at a time to develop, grow this community with safety in mind. Good participants that forged that with them. So it's.
I don't want to interrupt you, but we're trying to stick
I hear
as
you.
best as we
I
can
hear
to the
you.
5 minutes to afford
I respect
as
that, but
many as we
again,
can to speak.
consider a stay of action so that we can really meet this out. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I would like, my name is Norma Rolke. I live on Sandpiper Drive. I'd like to piggyback on what that young woman said, because she lives in Indian Lakes. Isn't that what she said?
She lives near Deep Hole in, I don't know, they call it Matunic Point?
She lives in Matunic.
She lives in Matunic.
Okay, so the guy that developed Mortucket by the Sea is a guy by the name of Norman Beauregard. He was a very highly respected naturalist from Massachusetts who came to Rhode Island to develop the shore community in a naturalistic way for people to enjoy the ocean, the lakes. He developed Mortucket by the Sea. He developed Indian Lakes. He developed North Plum Island and several more. And when I looked at the original plot plan for Mortucket, there were 400-plus plots of land that were plotted out. Over the years, people have bought one or two, put them together, made bigger plots. I think originally they were 60 by 100. And originally, all the homes had wells. All the roads were dirt roads. In the early 50s, the water company came in and put in water lines and fire hydrants. And I know two of the older gentlemen now who grew up then. They were like 5 and 6 years old at the time. They remember them coming in. They remember the hydrants going in. And they say that that's when the water company started plowing the streets in order for the hydrants to be accessible in emergencies. So I don't know what kind of documentation you need. The documentation for me is that I own a home. My property begins at the street, not before. I have an easement to use the street to get to and from my home. In the title insurance that I had to purchase, it said that the town maintained the roads, and I could not have gotten a mortgage if that were not there. This was told to us, all of us, I believe, by not only our realtor, but by people in the town themselves. As a matter of fact, because of this, I've met a lot of people, and I've learned that banks will not give mortgages on private roads unless they are going to be adequately maintained. And I think they don't think that adequate maintenance is by come-and-go town plowers. But the other thing that really upsets me is that whenever we talk about this, none of us 800 people were included in any of the discussions that you've had. And it seems as though you don't really hear about what a terrible situation you have put us in. That if we are responding, that's what your card said, you are required to maintain these roads. If that's true, we are legally liable. If someone falls, they can sue us. If the water main breaks, do we have to fix it? I don't know. So we have to get involved with all kinds of legal people in order to protect ourselves. It's going to be expensive. We, as this young man said, we don't have any kind of a facility to do that. But more than that, I don't understand why you don't want to plow our roads. You've been plowing them for 70 years. The Beauregards in the town they have lots of plans, lots of road design. Some of the roads have been made public back in 1959. And when those roads were made public, the town continued to plow the private roads as well. And in all the years, they never stopped plowing the roads. And it's in the town budget. The town does not separate private roads from public roads. One more thing.
All right, a few seconds. Go ahead.
I could not get a number from the town about what it costs you to plow our roads.
Thank you. Thank you. Yep, go ahead. 2 more.
Oh, hello. I'm Mary Gail Smith, and I live on Periwinkle Drive in Mawtucket by the Sea. And I am still a newcomer. This is my 13th summer here, although I'm retired and I now live here full-time. And I have found this whole process very interesting. I've learned a lot about private roads. And in particular, I've learned that all private roads are different, not all private roads are the same. Some of them have been created by HOAs, and that is not my case. Some of them have been created with the idea that the home is on the home proper is on a town road, a public road, but that the homeowner has to plow a shared driveway or a very long driveway, and that is not my case. Some private roads have private road signs on them, and that is not my case either. When the town made the decision to terminate services to all the private roads, one of the reasons that was given is this lack of documentation. And as a newcomer, I learned quickly that here in Rhode Island, we say things like, I know a guy, or something was done with a handshake, and I always smile when I hear that. But I think it's important to take into consideration that there was a reason 50 years ago, 70 years ago, that the town took over maintenance of some of the roads in Mautucket by the Sea. And just because we don't know the reason, or we haven't found that legal document yet in the stack or the pile or the vault, it doesn't mean that there wasn't a good reason. And I think it's not the best decision to terminate services without a full understanding of how they happen to come into being in the first place. So I'm going to respectfully suggest that you maintain the status quo with the town maintenance of the private roads until there is an opportunity to do a more in-depth review. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so at this point in the meeting, we're going to move to new business. We're going to run through that fairly quickly, and then we're going to come right back to public comments. So sit tight for a little bit. We're going to work through new business. Shouldn't take too long. Then we're going to come right back to public comments. So we're going to move to item 9A. It's a resolution rescinding an award of bid originally granted on October 24, 2022 to Santa Buckley of Bridgeport, Connecticut for the purchase of gasoline and diesel through August 30, 2023, as further described in a memorandum for the finance director to the town manager. Jim, can you give us a little brief on this one?
Yes, Council President. This agenda item 9A, the rescission of an award, should have been on the last town council agenda. It was left off inadvertently, and it's because we gave out a new contract, we have to rescind the old one.
All right. Do I hear a motion on item 9A?
Motion to approve 9A.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, that passes. It's going to bring us to item B, a resolution authorizing the tax assessor to abate taxes in the total amount of $13,821.40 as shown its tax abatement request number 624.
Motion to approve item 9B.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, that passes. It's going to bring us to item C, a resolution authorizing the town manager to execute an amendment to the electricity services agreement with Next Era Energy Services Rhode Island LLC, signed on September 15, 2022, that would allow the town the option to select 6-month or 12-month rates, as further described in a memorandum from Good Energy, town aggregation consultant, to the town council dated July 21, 2023. Is Mark Russo present tonight?
Mark Russo was not, but Jamie Rhodes, who represents Good Energy, is here. You give a very brief explanation of this.
Yes. Are we?
Maybe you could go back to when this started and give, so everyone knows exactly the baseline we have, the foundation.
Absolutely.
You took this, or the date and so forth.
Absolutely. And I know this is we're trying to be brief. I have a very short report about the program, if you'll indulge me for two minutes, just to run through some numbers about how the program has operated thus far. So if we just go to the first slide, the next slide here, I want to just give a quick rundown of the number of folks that have been enrolled in the program. So in total, across the residential, commercial, industrial, there were 13,529 eligible customers, of which the 2,828 opted out, and then 10,701 have enrolled, have been automatically enrolled in the program. This is as of June, so these numbers, people can opt into the program, people can opt out, so these numbers change on a monthly basis, but we did want to give you a snapshot of where we're at. If we go to the next slide, just to give a sense of the choices that the individuals in the community made, as expected, majority of the folks enrolled in the program stayed at the standard product. We have the numbers on the left here that opted to the basic, which does not include any additional renewable energy. And then the green 100 is a 100% renewable product, and the green 50 is a 50% renewable product. So this just gives us a breakdown across the different classes of folks that opted that chose different products from the standard one. To look at the impact on the next slide that we have here, I know this is a little bit of a busy slide, but we wanted to show is both the aggregate savings that residents have gained from the program, and as you can see, from the basic, the 735 customers there in total have saved over $12,000 on their electricity bills. The Green 100, as you can imagine, have spent more on their electricity bill as per their choice, and to the tune of just over $1,100. Those with the Green 50 have increased the amount of renewables, but have also saved a very small amount of $38 in total for 21 folks. And then in total for the 9,500 that stayed on the standard, that they've saved an aggregate of $161,000, and this is in just 3 months, in a 3-month period. So obviously with the lower price, as the prices are listed there, indicate that's the total. And then we also just wanted to, by increasing the amount of renewables, we wanted to give a quick snapshot here of 664,000 pounds of carbon dioxide equivalents were avoided by the amount of increased renewables that we've been able to deploy. So we've seen a reduction in cost for the community, and we've also seen a significant amount of avoided carbon emissions, which has always been the intent of the program to begin with. So that's just a quick snapshot. Is there any questions about that before I jump to what brought us here?
Our default setting is what for the people that don't opt out? Is it the green setting that the last council chose?
It's the standard.
The standard. Okay, good.
Yep. So then just a little bit of context. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go on. That's all right. Can you just address what the mechanics are for the opt-out and what the notice is to the consumers for their options?
Yes, so when the program launched in May, the 30 days prior to that, individuals were given direct mail. Every account enrolled was sent a piece of mail that outlined the rates there and included information about how they could opt out of the program. They could do so at that moment by sending back a self-addressed envelope, card with an envelope that was self-addressed or stamped and addressed. And they could opt out that way. They could also call a 1-800 number, a call center that we set up to service our customers in Rhode Island. They could also call Rhode Island Energy, and they could opt out through the utility in that way. And we also set up an online form through the program has a dedicated website where there's an online form that individuals could submit to opt out.
Once they're in the program with the renewal or at 6 months, which would be October,
November.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah, so one of the things that we're going to be doing is we're going to be working to release the rate, establish the rates and release them to the public roughly 30 to 45 days before the rates go into effect, which would be the beginning of November. At this time, we're going to be utilizing the social media channels through the town has available to communicate to its residents. We're going to be doing media notices to both statewide and local media. Since there's 7 communities across the state that are in the same position, we hope to have some pretty significant coverage of the rates. I know there's been coverage of Rhode Island Energy's rates. So our intention is to make sure we use all of the same channels that the Rhode Island Energy does to inform the public of their rates, plus any of the local opportunities that we have here. And we'll be further coordinating with the town administration about what are the best ways to do that and what are ways that we can improve on that from the previous rollout. So those conversations will be happening through the end of August into September.
That was exactly the concern I wanted to address, was the initial rollout left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. I'm frankly surprised that the opt-out was as low as it was. But thank you for that.
Yes, absolutely.
And who will be making the decision as far as the 6 months or the 1 year, like on the town level? Who is going to be sort of making sure
We are.
us, the council, every 6 months we get to?
Well, I think we're deciding whether we're going to do a 6-month or a 12.
Well, if I could provide some context to that question through this next piece, if we want to go to the next slide here. So when we selected NextEra, the initial intention of the plan was to move to a 12-month rate as quick as possible. The first one would be an introductory 6-month and then to move to a 12-month. What we have done is, as we've done the procurements of electricity to supply the subsequent 6 months that we're walking into, we're seeing a pretty significant price difference between what a winter rate and a summer rate is going to be, which is going to be on the next slide. And for that reason, we are recommending, after consulting with NextEra, the town should have an option. that there are good reasons for us to keep it on a 6-month cycle for the immediate future, maybe for the longer term future. I don't know what the future electricity markets are going to look like, but this would give us options of keeping a 6-month or a 12-month rate. And the reason behind this is, and if we go to the next slide, so we put some numbers together for this is an illustration. These are not the actual rates, but we wanted just to show what the difference of a 6-month versus 12-month rate would look like. And as folks have probably seen in the news, Rhode Island Energy has proposed a rate of 17.741 cents beginning in October. This is pretty much in line with the rates that we paid last winter, which were about 17.8 or 17.8 cents per kilowatt hour. And then in comparison, the summer rates this last summer that we just went through was at 10.341 cents. That 7 cents difference is huge. I mean, there's no way to put it any other way. That's a really big difference. Historically, the rates have varied more like 3 to 4 cents between these two rate periods, while a 7 cents differential is much greater that we see. So what happens is that if we were to blend the months, this 2 6-month rates together, we would end up, once again, if in a winter rate between a 16.9 to 18.9 range. I think this is the range that we are looking at, but these are not actual rates for us to propose yet. We don't have the information, the procurements done. And then next summer, looking at a 9.5 to 11.5 cents. Like these are ballpark ranges. If we were to blend those together, we'd be looking at somewhere between a 12.9 to 14.9 cents for a full 12-year or for a full 12-month term. What happens there is that you can see in the winter, we're likely to be at or below Rhode Island Energy's rates. And the goal in the summer is to once again be at or below Rhode Island Energy rates. If we have a 12-month rate, what happens is that during the winter, we are significantly below, and in the summer, we are significantly above. Now, the savings in total, in aggregate, is roughly the same, but we're creating pressure on individuals to choose now to leave the program for periods of time, which might not be in the best interest either of the program for its long-term viability or necessarily in the best interest of customers if they leave the program because they see next summer, I can leave the program and I can go back to Rhode Island Energy, which you absolutely can do. But then what if they don't decide to come back in next winter when we're offering rates that are once again lower than what Rhode Island Energy has to offer? So in our historic work in Massachusetts, this has been mitigated by that only a 3 to 4 cents difference means that we can be under in the winter and at in the summer. But with these 7 cent differences between the winter and summer, you get to this place where it's a much bigger variable in the winter versus the summer. And so what we want to be able to do is be able to present this with actual numbers to the town administration and say, our recommendation is to either stick with the 6-month or move to a 12-month. And initially, in this first period, our recommendation is going to be to move to a 6-month because the program is new. It hasn't been fully established yet. There's not a level of just historic work with the program. People have just been on it. And we don't want to give them a reason 12 months later to leave the program when the benefits of the program are intended to accrue over a 5-year period, not just an individual 12-month period. And so the intention behind this is, once again, give us options to be able to do a 6 or 12-month rate. What we would be doing is we would bring those numbers to the administration, and then the intention then is that it would be an administrative decision at that point of whether to be a 6-month or a 12-month rate. So the intention of the contract is to come to you and say, we want to have options of which one to do, but then the actual decision of what the rate would happen administratively under the contract. That's actually the end of my slides, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have about it.
All right.
I stayed with Good Energy, and I opted in. Just for anyone who, I'll just be a commercial. There was no interruption in anything, and I chose the basic one because I figured, well, I might as well try to save the most money in the 6 months. And I knew to set a reminder in my phone to pay attention at the end of October because I knew it was going to change, and that was all I did to sort of manage as a consumer. So I had no problems. I think it makes sense what you're saying to do the 6-month rate because I think people will shop. Like we ping-ponged in the past between Verizon and Cox trying to get the right deal on the cable. That's what I think people would do to you, and it would sort of muddy or blur the good intentions of renewables in the products, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And what this seeks here is us to vest the manager with the authority to execute based on your recommendation as to whether to do the 6 or the 12-month.
It would be to allow us to have the options to propose a 6 and 12-month. We would still make a recommendation, but it's not our decision. Eventually, it would actually still be the town manager that makes the decision for the program.
When will that decision be made? When will you make such presentation based on how you see the rates to the manager?
Yeah, our intention is to be having those meetings in the beginning of September with the administrations of the 7 communities together. Our goal is once again is to have all 7 communities do this together and not to have every community on 6-month rates or 12-month rates. Our intention is to have everybody move together so that we wouldn't see South Kingstown with a 13-cent rate all year long, while Narragansett next door would have a 16-cent rate and then a 10-cent rate. So the idea is we want to be able to move folks together.
Like power in numbers, leverage.
That's exactly it. And within the contract is what it does is it then allows us to procure at the same time, because if we did move one community to a 12-month rate, there would be a change in their procurement schedule because we would have to buy all of the electricity before the rate starts. While if we move to 2 6-month rates, we can continue procuring for that second 6 months through the first 6 months, if that makes sense. I wish I could have put that on a calendar, but yeah.
Would you be able to share your slides with the town staff so we could put them on the page with the energy?
Oh, absolutely. They have a copy now, and we're happy to put this on both the FAQ that's already published there as well for the program site, and the town can publish it as on your own site.
Thank you.
This option for the 6 or 12-month doesn't change the relationship at all between Good Energy and Next Era?
No, no change.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do I hear a motion here on 9C?
Motion to approve item 9C.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's going to bring us to item D. We're going to take D, E, and F in chunks. Rich Bourbonnais, come on up. Yes, you did.
Just checking. I know.
All right, Rich, you know how we do it lately. Just want to walk us through a brief as to each item here?
Sure. D is a request for AC at the wastewater treatment plant. Presently, there are a few offices there, and we just want to AC those. It'll be similar to what you see here with mini splits. There is a component here that'll happen in the next few years where we're doing a multi-year funding. That's for the replacement of the windows. It's 1970s building. So, item E is the modification to the fees schedule to include a fee rate for BOD and TSS, and also a fee rate for releasing OWTS NOVs that we have. If you remember, I was here back almost a year ago. It was in October, I guess, and I was looking at a fee, but I wanted to really kind of look at it and understand it a little bit better. We went back to the drawing board and we sharpened our pencil a little bit, so we came down a little bit on that. And the final item is a salt brine system. Presently, you'll notice that we salt our streets with a brine, a liquid. It sticks to the road a little bit better, and it's much better for our treatment of our roads. And this is a system that actually provides a brine. In the past, we've been going over to Narragansett, and we've been working trades to do that. So we just want to have our own system. So that's it.
All right, thank you, Rich. Any questions?
Question. Somebody asked me about what our bidding process is. Like, when you got the bid for the air conditioner, how does that work? Do you put it out to 3 different?
In this case, I believe we went to the state MPA on that. Often, our bids will go to, we'll put on an RFP, it'll be in the paper, and then we go on the websites around for the posting in our own website, and we do it, whatever the process is as it's defined by the state for an RFP. In this case, I believe it was through the state. Was it the MPA? I didn't.
So I can answer that. So the master price agreement is put out by the state of Rhode Island.
Okay.
It's for like all municipalities in the state where they can buy off one list where they're saving money without having to go out to bid. There's also a sole source bid. So if there was something that we needed, just one thing that no one else could provide, you would put in a sole source bid, and that would go through here, downstairs, and we would scrutinize that and bring it before the council, or there'd be the low bid, where we get 3 bids. So, but we usually use the MPA, that's the most common one.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions for Rich?
Motion to approve items 9D, E, and F.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Thank
that
you.
passes. Thank you, Rich.
Thanks, Rich.
All right, it's going to bring us to item G, a resolution authorizing the town manager to enter into a 3-year memorandum of understanding with the town of Narragansett to establish annual fair share funding of the South Kingstown Senior Center for services provided to Narragansett senior residents effective July 1, 2023 for fiscal years 23 to 24, 24 to 25, and 25 to 26. And that's further described in a memorandum from the Director of Leisure Services to the town manager dated July 27, 2023. Terry?
Just as a reminder to the council, we've explained why we're putting forth a draft MOU between the two towns to really solidify the fair share funding formula for Narragansett to contribute to the South Kingstown Senior Services program because of the services and programs that are provided annually. The MOU breaks out a 70-30 split currently between the two towns, and basically over the next 3-year period for budgeting purposes, should the rate fluctuate more than 2% in either direction, we would then go back to the town of Narragansett and look at what the fair share funding would be if it exceeds 2% or goes below a 2% differential. The staff, both staffs of the senior services for the town have met, reviewed this. The town managers have reviewed it. The town solicitor's office has also reviewed this MOU. We think it's a good way to move forward in terms of a 3-year agreement that solidifies how we will calculate the fair share funding this year, next fiscal year, and the year after.
All right. Any questions, Terry? Go ahead.
Has this been brought to the Narragansett Town Council yet?
The town of Narragansett has the draft MOU. I don't believe it's on their agenda yet, but it will be.
We expect and anticipate that they're going to approve this the same way we will tonight?
I can't answer that, but
Well, I've spoken to the town manager about this, and we're both on the same wavelength on what the expectations are regarding the senior center for Narragansett and South Kingston. And Terry has been working very hard to get this MOU ready. It's long overdue. We've needed it for a long time. So I'm anticipating that if there are a couple of tweaks, that's fine, but I think their town council would be as happy as we are with it.
Right. Great work with us, Terry.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
Tim, you're satisfied this is consistent, and I understand there's a lot more detail in this than what we had with the handshake agreement. You're satisfied this is...
I am. The 70-30 split is fair for both towns, and there's checks and balances in there in the event it goes either way. But we have a great relationship with Narragansett, and it serves, I think 1,500 of their residents last year, and we have about 3,000 of our own, and their residents are treated as our own. There's no price differentials, same programs, everything, and we've worked very hard with not only their town council, but with the town manager and at Terry's level to get, this is a big step forward for both towns.
Thank you, Terry, for all your hard work. I was at just one of those meetings with Narragansett council members, and I know it was a really challenge at some point to sort of get this to a, from the handshake to this. And so I'm sure it took a lot more hours than this 10 or 15 minutes that we're discussing it in public, but I just want to thank you for your hard work on it.
Thank you.
I think that, moving things from a handshake deal to more formalized agreements is sort of the theme of a lot of what we are doing here on the council. So I do want to thank you for that, though, because the senior center is really important.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve item 9G.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. That passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
Thanks, Susan, as well. I meant to say Sue DeMassi's on that, too. Thank you.
All right, it's going to bring us to item H, a resolution authorizing an award of purchase to Liberty Chevrolet of Wakefield, Massachusetts for the purchase of one 2023 Chevrolet Silverado 1500 pickup truck in accordance with all specifications in an amount not to exceed $45,999, and as further described in a memorandum from the Facilities Director to the Town Manager dated August 4, 2023. Jim, want to walk us through this one quickly?
So for the past 15 months, you've seen how I scrutinize vehicle purchases, very, very tight. We get more, do more with less. This is one of those purchases we just need. We have we had 5 openings in our facilities staff. We filled all 5 with some good, very good, hardworking people. But some of them are using their own vehicles to haul away, you know, whatever was in the trash or whatever else was around. And Mark Russo was one of them. He's the director there. And he was using his own vehicle. I've seen him do it. This is one of those needs we just need. We need a new truck. We've scrutinized it. We got the best deal we possibly could. And I think, I'm hopeful that the council approves this.
Motion to approve.
Item 9H.
9H.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that passes. It's going to bring us to I and J. We'll ask Chief Moynihan to come on up to address both of these. And again, we'll take this one in a block. Chief, you just want to give us sort of a brief on each of these?
Yes, good evening. So these are 2 purchases to supplement the 2 motorcycles that we have leased this year. So the first is for 2 LiDAR radar units for each motorcycle, and the second purchase is for computers. Those computers will be mounted in a container in the rear of the motorcycles, and the officers will be able to use the computers in the field to process checks and any violations that are issued.
All right.
Both purchases, the funding comes from a grant that we applied for through the Office of Highway Safety, so it isn't going to cost the town any money from both of them. They'll be fully paid for through the grants.
Chief, when will we have these motorcycles like operationable?
As far as into the season?
As far as in regular use, beginning to be used by officers?
Yeah, they're being used right now.
Great.
One of them is being used on a daily basis. I've assigned one of our school resource officers full-time to it, so he rides it every day. He's for duty. When school resumes, he'll go back to the school, and then we'll be using them on an interim basis here and there.
Can you just refresh our memory about the motorcycles? Are we leasing them or did we buy them? I can't.
No, we're leasing them over a 3-year period, and so all of this equipment here, I mean, the radar units can be mounted on the bikes, but they also be handheld, and they'll be able to transfer them onto another motorcycle in the future. Same thing with the computers.
That's what I was wondering, is that, because I wasn't sure.
These are just accessories for the bikes, and again, depending on the life of those devices, we'll be able to utilize them for future bikes or if the lease expires.
And I might not have heard the whole grant piece. Can you just restate that part about what grant is covering this, or you wrote a grant for it?
Yes, we applied for a supplemental budget or a supplemental grant through the Office of Highway Safety through Department of Transportation, and we're awarded that, and that's paying for this. Basically, just to supplement our efforts for traffic enforcement throughout the town.
Okay. And did our grant writer write that, or did you write that?
We wrote that, yes.
Thank you.
Nice work.
Council President, just want to bring up a point. So when I approved these about a year ago, I did not want these to be parade motorcycles. I want them used, and we're getting a lot of use out of them. I see these officers out 6 in the morning going through town. They're very effective. People don't know they're there. The police department in the past 2 weeks has had a tremendous impact on highway safety here in town. They arrested 3 suspects of DUI on Route 1 alone in a 4-hour period. They got 2 more just, I think it was last night or the night before. This town is rated in a national survey as one of the top 100 safest cities or towns in the United States. We're ranked number 20. That's based off crime statistics and a lot of different factors. There are only 5 on that list from Rhode Island. We're the highest, ranked number 20 in the entire country. There's another survey out where we use internal statistics. where this town is the second safest city or town in the state 2 years in a row, and it was the first 3 years ago. That's a testament to the police department. That's all them. They work very hard. You see them out there all the time. They're keeping everyone safe when no one's looking. So it's, that's why we have these tools that we've given the police department.
And this is all, you've been here 13 months, right? Matt?
13
months.
yes.
Jim, you're 15 months. It's amazing. Thank you both. Motion to approve item 9M.
Second.
We're going to take them both.
Oh, 9M
They're actually I and J.
Sorry, I don't know why I circled that. 9, I, and J.
Second.
Oh, I know.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that passes. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
It's going to move us to item K. Jamie, we're going to walk through these individually instead of taking this in a block. So first one here, resolution to direct the planning board to review and recommend zoning, ordinance, and map amendments to allow the permitting and development of plot 80-1, lot 18 on Ministerial Road for use by the town as a site for a new emergency medical services facility as further described in a memorandum from the planning director to the town manager dated August 7, 2023. Jamie, go ahead.
So again, thank you, Mr. Council President. With regards to this agenda item, it is our recommendation that the council forward the request to change the zoning from residential to government institutional -1. That referral is required for the planning board for any map or zoning amendment. So again, it's before you as a council to go to the planning board for review with consistency with the overall goals and objectives of the town's comprehensive community plan, as well as the council's objectives for emergency service building at this location.
All right.
So it's two aspects: amendment to the text to create a government institutional 1 zone, and then changing the zoning map from residential to GI1.
All right, any questions for Jamie? You know what, we're going to take the next one too while you're here.
Okay.
Resolution to direct the planning board to review and recommend zoning ordinance and map amendments to align the town's medical marijuana regulations with the town's recreational cannabis regulations, as further described in a memorandum from the planning director to the town manager dated August 7, 2023.
So again, under the same guidance that I just mentioned, you are required under Rhode Island law for any amendment to your zoning regulations to make a referral for the planning board for consistency with the comprehensive community plan and make a recommendation back to the town council for favorable action or non-favorable action or amendments to the proposal. The council asked the planning department for consistency to look at the medical marijuana and make them consistent with the recreational or cannabis regulations. This is our proposal to do that. Two requirements, again, it's amendment to the language of the town zoning regulations. It also requires multiple map amendments for consistency with regards to cultivation, manufacturing, testing, and then retail sales. So this brings them into alignment.
So how long So how long do you think, because I did ask for this months ago, I feel like it was a whole nother season that we had this cannabis conversation. So how long do you think before it comes back to the council?
We have it on a draft agenda for their next regularly scheduled meeting, which would be next Tuesday.
Okay,
If there was any slippage, it would be 2 weeks following that at their work session.
okay. I'm glad that it's moving forward. I mean, we got a lot of really important information from residents who felt that they would be impacted by the recreational cannabis sales and any regulation change, or whatever we changed. So I'm hopeful that we can do a little bit tighter for the medical pieces. And just to follow up to the solicitor, have we heard anything from the state of Rhode Island about the process for recreational licenses?
Not to my knowledge.
But we know the Cannabis Commission members have been appointed.
Good point. They've been appointed, but no decisions have been made yet.
Okay.
And at least, presumably, regs are coming.
See, I would have appreciated knowing that. I don't know how you knew that. It was in the paper. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So we should pay attention and be updated as a council, because
So Mike, just keep us apprised. We know you pay attention to it, so.
I promise you, as soon as we've got regs, you'll know about it.
yeah, it's funny because it was hurry up and make all these changes in the winter, and then the state of Rhode Island has slow walked us all the way 9 months from we're 10 months from the election. So, thank you.
All right. Do I hear a motion on K and L?
Motion to approve item K and item L.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Thank you, Jamie. I think you got another one here, N, so we'll take that. You got the next two?
Yes.
All right, we'll move to M now.
Hi.
M is a resolution authorizing the town manager to sign an application to the National Park Service to complete the land conversion of a portion of Town Farm Park with Green Hill Park as further described in a memorandum from the planning director to the town manager dated August 7, 2023. Jamie.
Yes, Mr. President, I just want to clarify one thing. This is to fix something that was not brought over the finish line 30, 40 years ago. 1983, Town of South Kingstown gave a portion of what you now see as the parking lot at South County Hospital to them in exchange for something, a land transfer. It was done incorrectly. The Tuckertown soccer fields came to the town where it should have gone from the hospital with those proceeds. We should not have gotten the land before the deal was closed, and we did. So we had to hold off. Flash forward to 1990. The town approached DEM on another piece of land down in Green Hill Park, 20 acres, and asked DEM if we could use this in the land transfer of what is now the existing parking lot. They said yes, but once again, the town did not close the deal on that. So we're here tonight, and I'll let Jamie get into the minutia of it, of moving forward, closing something that should have been done years and years ago.
I'm not sure after that explanation I have much to add, but again, Mr. Manning is absolutely correct. This is to correct something that occurred in 1983, so we are government here 40 years later. It was a discussion between federal, local, and state government on a land transfer and making that whole. What you would be doing is authorizing the town manager to sign a map that would solidify the transfer of the property that was credited for Green Hills for the land transfer from the town to South County Hospital 40 years ago.
In short, this is a technical correction of title documents. It's not changing anything.
There are no technical titles changing hands.
All right, any other questions?
Thank you, thank you, thank you for bringing this one to a close. Motion to approve item 9M.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Jamie. And we got one more for you here. Item N is a resolution amending the membership of the Route 1 Stewardship Plan Development Committee to 6 to include 1 Planning Board member representative, 1 Economic Development Committee member representative, and 4 members at large, as further described in a memorandum for the Planning Director to the Town Manager dated August 7, 2023.
So a quick explanation of that is we have the Stewardship Development Plan Committee. They're responsible for developing a stewardship plan for Route 1 from North Kingstown to the Charleston Town Line. The Town Council had authorized funds for the Planning Department to hire a consultant. We do have a consultant beta group on board to bring that over the finish line. The difficulty is the prior council had an 11-member committee. When we reached out to those committee members, we had 2 that were resigned and not reappointed. We have a couple that do not want to be reappointed, and we are trying to wrap this up in the next 6 months. So our recommendation as a department would be EDC membership on the board, planning board member on the board, and then 4 members at large. They could be additional members of EDC or planning, but we would like to move this forward. The difficulty we have is quorums. So if we have a membership of 6, 4 would constitute a quorum versus 11, and we need 6. So
Jamie, is this going to require us to appoint all these members to fill this board? Or are the existing members going to stay?
we potentially would, and again, I'll defer to council, but we potentially have 6 that would be able to serve. Go ahead, Susan.
Right, but do we already have those 6 serving?
Yes.
And the makeup of that 6 coincides with what's here? 1 from the planning
We
board?
may need 1 new appointment on EDC. Larry Fish is the present appointee from EDC, and he corresponded with Susan at our request, and he does not wish to continue as the EDC rep. But if we had 5 standing, we can have a quorum and we could start our meetings.
So it won't delay
Well,
us.
this would make it more efficient than more.
Sounds good.
Yeah, sounds good.
Motion to approve item 9N.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Right, that passes. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you very much.
We're now going to move back to public comment. So again, we ask that anyone who wishes to speak on any item whatsoever, not limited to the agenda, could be on any topic, to come on up. We just ask that you first introduce yourselves, and we're going to limit you to 5 minutes. So come on up.
Good evening. My name is Susan Dye Sigmund, 105 Sandpiper Drive. I want to speak briefly because a lot of what I have to talk about has already been stated, but I wanted to add my voice to the request, which was at the bottom of a letter that I'm afraid I missed that meeting, the last meeting. But at the end, I said, I'm respectfully requesting that the current services be continued through 2024 for the safety of the taxpayers, for the safety of postal delivery services, emergency services, and other entities, including the town of South Kingstown with properties on these roads, townspeople and non-residents of these roads who freely drive down and enjoy their use. The property owners are not simply homeowners. You will find that there are other entities, including this town, including South County Land Trust, the Audubon Society, and my personal favorite, the United States of America. So thank you very much for this, and I hope you give serious consideration to my request in addition to the other requests this evening. Thank you.
All right, anyone else in the audience? Feel free to just come on up. First come, first serve.
My name is Joe Duva. I live at Fort Teal Drive in reference to the road scenario as well. I sent an email out to each and every one of you about a month or so ago, just expressing my concerns. Just like everybody else here, we're concerned about safety and the managing of the roads itself. But more importantly, when I purchased the property 18 years ago, I spoke with my realtor because it is the dirt road, and there was a concern as to who maintained it, and I specifically asked her, and she told me the town maintained it, which was okay. But I called the town at that point in time, 18 years ago, I don't remember who it was, and asked them the same question, and they said that they did plow the roads. So I let it go, went through my purchase, and everything went fine and dandy until back in February, I think it was, when we heard the incident that they weren't going to be plowing anymore. I subsequently called here, didn't speak with anybody in particular until I got a hold of Richard Barbonis. He was very helpful, I must say. He must have been fielding a lot of angry phone calls at that point in time. But he mentioned that there was, the roads were taken care of by tradition, which I did not hear this term prior. If I did, I would have questioned it. I'm in a similar type of line of work in Connecticut, and when there's associations involved with something like this, there's an instrument that pivots something where either I'm going to take care of them, you're going to take care of them. I looked at my deed. My deed strictly says plot 56, and there's my meets and bounds. It has nothing to do with the road. So everybody's probably in the same boat I'm in, and there's concerns, and I just wanted to voice my opinion.
Thank you.
Mr. President, council members, good evening. My name is Michael Miller. I'm an EMS captain, and I'm also the vice president of the IFF Local 3365, the labor union that represents the EMS professionals here in town. And I've been a paramedic here in town for 9 years. Back in 1954, the International Association of Firefighters partnered with the Muscular Dystrophy Association. Over the past 68 years, the IFF has raised over $700 million to donate to the MDA. The MDA takes that $700 million, they fund research into treatments, they help families in need, and they also put on specialized summer camps so that affected kids with these various neuromuscular diseases can just go and feel like kids. The Fill the Boot is Local 3365's largest philanthropic endeavor every year. And on July 22nd, nearly every member of the local went down to Main Street in Columbia and filled the boot from donations from people in SK, including one very heavy jar of change that ended up counting up to $237.38. It weighed 19 pounds. It was a lot. So we raised $2,965, and every single dollar is now donated to the Muscular Dystrophy Association of Rhode Island and Southeastern Massachusetts. And I'm here on behalf of the local to express our gratitude and thanks to all the people of the town of South Kingstown who not only made charitable financial contributions, but there were so many kind words from people, not even about what we were doing, but who we are, what we do out in town. Most of the time we don't see people on their best days. And it was good to see people just going about their day and able to say, hey, thank you, whatever. As well, on August 25th, is that next Saturday? It's either 25th or 26th. We are going to go out one more time for another event. The most money we've ever raised is $3,500, and we're hoping to have one more event between 10 and 2 to just totally knock that out of the park and have this be our best year ever. If you were unable to donate previously, if you didn't see us, if you're not going to be in town on the 26th, whatever Saturday is, I'll be outside afterwards. Anyone that wants to give. We also, now that it's 2023, we've decided to step into the 21st century. We now have a QR code, so that anyone that doesn't have change, that doesn't have money on them, we're more than happy to take your donations digitally as well. And that all goes directly to the MDA website, and we don't even touch it. So, thank you.
All right, excellent.
For the record,
Thank you.
Saturday's the 26th.
Good evening. My name is Doug Shapiro, and I live at 19 Teal Drive, Green Hill. Much to your surprise, my remarks have to do with the discontinuation of plowing and grading certain roads in the town. I believe you, the council, made your decision last January without knowing all the facts. I'm told that there was no legal requirement for a public hearing on the issue. In retrospect, that would have been a good thing. The public input that would have been received would likely have led to a different outcome. So unfortunately, your decision, which was made to provide equity, was broad brush and didn't take into consideration the specific issues related to each of the affected roads. Initially, my argument about Teal Drive and the other roads in my immediate neighborhood was, how can we abutters to the roads who don't own the roadway land be required to assume the responsibility for plowing and other maintenance of property that we don't own, and thereby incur potential liability for what may happen on that land? This remains a valid argument. In the past month or so, I've done a fair amount of research and spoken to a number of residents about the issue. I keep pondering the question, why would the town plow and grade my road all these years, actually all these decades? I believe the answer, and you're looking for a reason from earlier discussion, I believe the answer may be that it's been done since the time the water lines and hydrants were installed numerous decades ago. And why? To maintain the integrity of the water lines and access to the hydrants. So the reason hasn't changed, and the practice has to continue. Other arguments and positions on the matter have been articulated by a number of residents who have addressed the council in writing or during public comment at these meetings, or perhaps both. I'm sure you're aware of all of them and should take all of them into further consideration. But my ask this evening is for you to go back to what Jess Rose said at the June 26th meeting, specifically that the issue needs to be revisited on a case-by-case and road-by-road basis for further consideration of which roads should and which roads shouldn't be plowed and graded if they're dirt roads done by the town. So in closing, I implore you to reopen the topic, grant the stay that was requested earlier this evening, form a committee or other study group if need be, and ultimately make the correct and truly equitable decision on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Anthony Palazzolo from North Stonington, Connecticut. I'm a property owner in Westerly, Rhode Island, and licensed to practice law in Connecticut and in California, but not licensed in Rhode Island. Now, for the last 3 years or so, I've been putting my legal skills to work in Westerly, Rhode Island, seeing what I can do to open up the rights of ways for the people of Rhode Island, where I grew up in Westerly. It's part of a much larger movement that we've seen in the last 5 years or so to open up the shoreline to people of the state of Rhode Island, really throughout the entire state. We have people like Scott Keeley here tonight, who was arrested in South Kingston a few years ago, really raised the profile of that cause. We have Conrad Furler here tonight, who's made a proposal I am here to speak in favor of. He, of course, founded the Facebook group. It's really gained momentum in the past years, and these gentlemen and many others are in part responsible for the recent shoreline access bill that was passed just a few months ago. It's really made waves really throughout the entire state. I come here having read Conrad's proposal only a few days ago and having looked at your harbor management plan only a few days ago. I find Conrad's proposal to be incredibly simple, incredibly conservative, pedestrian even. Those aren't words that are normally associated with Conrad, more like bombastic and outstanding. I hope she's not too upset with me. But really, all the guy is doing here is asking you to implement some of the recommendations that you had in your harbor management plan for at least 13 years. The latest revision, as you probably know, is 2010. I applaud you for actually having a harbor management plan as early as 1992. You even have probably twice as many rights of ways as the town of Westerly. You're doing good things here. I think your plan is great. It's clear. It's easy to read. There are recommendations. And really, Conrad has, his plan here is all cued in with various portions of your harbor management plan. So really, anybody can do what I did this past week. Just look at Conrad's proposal, look at the references to the harbor management plan, see that all he's really asking for is for you to start implementing some of the recommendations with respect to these 8 or so rights of ways. That's the most of it. He's right. Every time I check through, he's asking for signage. Your harbor management plan points out to your right-of-ways don't have signage. You should have signage. That's how people know it's there. I took a drive down there today. I've been down this road here, Charleston Beach Road, about a half a dozen times over the years, but I took an extra ride today to see, again, what it was like. And yeah, there's no signs there. No wonder why your harbor management plan calls for signs. There's various recommendations in there. You try to put some dune bridges so people can actually get to the beach from the road. That's good stuff. We're trying to do similar things down in Westerly. We've referred a lot of rights of ways up to CRMC. And it's not because the people of Westerly don't have access to their own beaches. The way I see it, we're doing that for the people of the whole state, for you folks to come down. There's a couple of really long stretches of beach where you can drive a four-wheel vehicle in the wintertime and go surf casting. There is the Sand Trail, which bridges from Weekapaug into Charleston. We just had a referral of that from Westerly up to CRMC. And in, I think, 12C here, you've got a letter from the town of Charleston where they referred their part of the Sand Trail up there as well. I was, at least in part, responsible for that. Scott Keeley, who's from Charleston, introduced me to Deb Carney, the president of the town council. I had been working on the westerly side of things. We talked about it for a few times. I provided her with a whole bunch of literature that I had collected just from members of the public as well as legal research showing that that really should be opened up to the entire state of Rhode Island. And we've got them referred up to CRMC now, so hopefully they'll be designated as state rights of ways, and you folks from South Kingston can come down and use those rights of ways. So, we're all doing our part, and we'd ask that you do your part to open up your beaches in a similar manner for the mutual benefit of the public writ large. Finally, if it's okay, I would like to have a couple of documents entered into the record for anybody who wants to. I assume you post them online. People can check back online in the future or something and read them. Is that right?
You can. Preferably if you send us an electronic copy, it's probably easier. But we'll take the physical too.
Okay. Who should I give them to? Okay. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, President, Councilman, and the council. My name is Scott Keeley. I live on 62 Baxter Street in Charlestown, Rhode Island. You may know me as an avid seaweed gatherer. And I'm here to support Conrad Furla's proposal, not simply because I agree with Anthony that it's a very modest proposal, that it seems to be fitting with your harbor management plan, but from my perspective, the South Kingstown shore is right at the eastern edge of the closest beach to my home, the Charlestown Beach, and this summer, one of the things I feel was a great accomplishment was there's no longer a security guard there telling people like me that we can't be on the beach, which is in accordance with the CRMC's interpretation of the new shoreline law. It is not just for passage along the beach, it is for doing anything you like to do on the beach within the bounds of legality. You can't do illegal things. Don't litter, it's just anybody who's listening. But that's the interpretation of the CRMC and the DEM of the new law. And now there are no longer security guards telling you that you cannot be on the beach, residing peacefully, as we should. The same group of people that are of an association in that area are filing a lawsuit. It is that association that is heading up the lawsuit to get rid of our new shoreline rights law. And I find it interesting, as I was driving down there with Anthony Palazzola today, that many of the dune bridges are built on town property. And those dune bridges, I understand it's better to have a bridge over the dune than to have people trampling the dune. However, many of those dune bridges have decks built on alongside of them, which produce more structure in the dunes. I have a hard time believing those were permitted, but nobody goes down there because there are signs that say there's no public passage to the beach beyond this point. That's right up at the front of the road where it meets Charlestown Beach, when in fact there are CRMC right-of-ways. There's DEM land at the end. I know people that have hunted rabbits there many years ago. I don't know if they're still hunting down there for those rabbits in the winter, but that's another matter. Nonetheless, there are right-of-ways down there. The signs that say there is no public access are incorrect. And in my own personal view, certain people feel that they're very intent that everybody obey the laws regarding private property lines while they're building on public property. It seems to me they're not so interested in protecting private property as they are against the Rhode Island public from using property near them, especially when it's ours. So thank you. I'll yield the rest of my time.
Thank you.
How are you? My name's Conrad Furla. I put the thing on the agenda to have Charleston Town Beach Road surveyed, and it's for a couple different reasons. First one, I'd like to restore access and markers to the 3 CRMC right-of-ways that are on that road. They're on the CRMC site. They've just been semi-lost or hard to find. There's a ton of private property signs, no trespassing signs, built on public land. We need to have that resolved. The tax maps, according to GIS, say that the road is 50 feet wide, which makes sense because when we did this in Narragansett, it turns out the roads were also 50 feet wide, not 8 feet wide or 10 feet wide. So most of those signs that say private property, no trespassing, private road are actually on town land, which is the reason why we need it surveyed. There are also multiple town properties on this road. There's also DEM land at the very end, and there's also Nature Conservancy land. And in fact, there used to be a dune bridge that existed on the town land. It was there in 2006. Somehow it's gone now, probably from Sandy, and nobody ever rebuilt it. I also think this is a larger issue. And I think he lives on that road. He's not very happy with me. All of our coastal roads should probably be surveyed. And the reason I say that, there's the shoreline is rising. You have the shore, then you have the beach, and then you have a town road. And in some places, the shore and the town road have merged. And what that does is that means the town is now the landowner of what is the future beach. And that's going to happen everywhere along our coast. I'm not saying big changes have to come on all of our shoreline roads, but we should survey them and know where they are, because after a hurricane, I don't know if you guys understand disaster capitalism. After Sandy, you ever notice the house has tripled in size? After Rockaway, it was rebuilt, it's doubled in size. What's happening in Maui right now, there's going to be giant hotels. That's how it works. So we have to know what is the town and what's not the town's. And that's very important for what's going to happen in the next 5 years, 100 years, or whatever is happening. We have to have a plan, and I wouldn't be surprised if the federal government requires everybody to do that in the future, because it's coming our way. Lastly, not related to this, but sort of, regarding private and public roads. So I learned something fighting for shoreline access for 5 years. Not intentional, okay? There are private roads, there are public roads, and then there are private roads that are undesignated with no ownership. There's not private or public. There's almost like a three-way, which is why I think Jess Rose said each road needs to be examined, because Green Hill Ocean Road, some people say it's private. DEM on paperwork says it's a town road. It used to be Charleston Town Beach Road, and it was Charleston Town Beach Road prior to the court case where the town of South Kingstown tried to stop everybody from being built in Green Hill area. They were supposed to build nothing. They went to the Rhode Island Supreme Court, it lost, and they rebuilt it. And after that, there's like this little no man's land where there's a little bit of missing paperwork, there's a little bit of parcels in the middle of the road, and nobody really knows whose property it is. So, like I said, each road really needs to be examined because it's not a binary issue. So, thank you very much. Nate Merrill is going to speak on the details of the proposal. So, thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good evening, Doral Beasley. Are you tabling the solicitor's report because you don't have 5 people here tonight? I'm curious because
Doral,
I believe the solicitor's report had something to do with.
We haven't even gotten to that item yet.
So you can have another public comment after that?
We will not, but that's going to come up in a few items after we finish public comment. We'll have the manager's report, then the solicitor's report.
Okay, but the solicitor's report is going to talk about a change to the charter, correct?
There's going to be an update on it, giving us information related to that, yes, but I don't believe a vote will be taken
There's no
on
vote.
that matter.
No vote?
No vote.
No vote. Likely
Okay.
no vote.
All right. the town of Barrington, they still have a financial town meeting, but their budget structure is different. They have one budget for the entire town, so the municipal and the school is one budget. You don't have the school district coming up with a budget and the town coming up with another one. They have what's called an appropriations committee. I believe their committee is, I think, if I'm correct, I think their committee, you actually run to be on the committee. One of the big problems I think that we have in this town as far as our school budget is that they're over there making their budget, and you guys are over here doing your thing, and then you get together, but you don't really see what's going on either side. If you had a committee that was looking at both sides of the budget, then the people on that committee would say, we understand what you're trying to do, but on this over here, we're trying to do this. I don't know. I think it was something you could talk about. And lastly, I brought this up the last time I was here, but I still don't understand it. Okay, so the tax rate went from $10.95 to $11.05, correct? That's the new tax rate? $11.05?
Jim, is that correct?
It's 11, no.
It went down from there.
No, it was supposed to be $11.07, but then you dropped it 2 cents. So it went up 10 cents instead of 12, right?
I thought we brought it down 2 more cents from there.
I just looked on the website. I thought it said 11.05. Anyway, that doesn't make us. All right, so it went up a dime. But when I'm looking at my tax bill, and I look at what at the tax of that tax rate, when I look at the tax rate, and I look at the municipal tax rate for this year for $105 million budget. The municipal side went down a dime, and the school district side went up 23 cents. Okay, you level funded the school district, and we were told by the school district that level funding the school district wasn't going to raise anybody's taxes. So how is that possible? How is it possible that the overall budget went from $102.5 million to $105 million budget, but the municipal side goes down a dime, and the entire increase is on the school side when you level funded them? I think I'd like to see the town budget director here next time. Maybe he can explain it to me, because it doesn't make any sense to me.
Thank you, Doral.
So I just have one.
Just to clarify, the
Doral,
tax
you're
rate
walking
is
out.
11.05.
Doral, you're walking out the door. Okay, so the idea about an appropriations committee, Doral's left, but I don't disagree that it's a complicated school budget and a lot of processes. What would be the process of making any changes to have an appropriation committee to help? I know the budget is quite complex over there.
Require a charter change.
Okay.
Or an amendment to state law. My understanding of state law is that our only responsibility as a town council is to appropriate a bottom line figure, and we have no influence over how that is budgeted.
That's correct, but I think the question was if you want to change the process for putting those budgets together, it would require a charter change.
I mean, it is very frustrating, to feel and hear some of the missteps of the school department in terms of their budgeting, and then people come and want to air it out on this side when we don't really have any influence. So, I mean, years ago, the previous superintendent didn't notice enough teachers and was basically, investigated for that. And then we have information now where we didn't lay off enough teachers and we are overstaffed. So it's very hard to sit in a seat on the council and have both of those pieces of information and not have a way to help the community get the most for their value of their tax dollar. So, I'm just looking for a solution so that we wouldn't have to have that piece of information where it relies on one expert to do the noticing. So we have too many staff again. So it's just hard to deal. Like you can't respond because we don't have any ability to affect change.
All right, thank you, Deb. So we still are in public comment. So if anyone who hasn't spoken who wishes to speak, I invite you to just come on up. First come, first serve.
Good evening. Randy Noka, resident of Richmond, citizen of the Narragansett Tribal Nation, and with ancestral ties to all the lands of what is now southern New England. Well, first of all, some of the comments about the beach access or coastal access, it's interesting to hear some of the residents speak about it. I know it's something, my tribe has been looking for a number of years now, and it's, it took an act by the state of Rhode Island to allow most of the residents that didn't have that access, and landowners or people taking ownership up to the coastline, never mind high tide mark, but it's good to see where it's gotten and some more work to do. I'm not saying it's a town council, but state of Rhode Island and a lot of the states with coastal access or coastal access issues. What I did want to speak more about tonight, a few minutes that I have, is Town Farm Park and what this town council did back in the winter now and stopping the project of expanding the parking lot of South County Hospital. And it was the right decision, and I appreciate the effort on the council's part and things that have happened since then. But the area is still there, and there's things that are, I noticed, and hopefully not my comments don't offend anyone, but that's not my intent, but everyone speaks from the heart at these meetings, and so will I. I noticed that on occasion, I don't know that it's used all the time, but the field is still used as a ballpark or a ball field and activities, and not to take away from anyone's enjoyment and opportunity of younger ones especially, but we came to find out during that South County Hospital expansion, parking lot expansion, we came to find out that it's a significant cultural sacred area of my people. And I find it troubling. And I don't know what can be done. I know I proposed to the town council that, somehow maybe the tribe can be sought out. Maybe the land can be given back to the tribe. Lord knows that we had all of what is now southern New England at one time, certainly of all of South Kingstown. It was the ancestral lands, they are the ancestral lands of the Aboriginal people, the Narragansett. But we know, it came to be found out during that parking lot discussion that it's a cultural site, significant cultural site. There's burials there. So it bothers me as I'm riding by on Route 1 to see ball games and whatever going on there. I don't know what can be done. I don't begrudge anyone in their ways, especially young ones. They're dear to my heart like they are all of us. But it seems like something can be done further than just to stop a parking lot. Maybe somehow the tribe, it's given back to the tribe. If not, at least stop activities that, in my mind, degrade the area, degrade what was done there. It harbors, it houses, it has the bones, the remains of some of my people. And to have ball games done over it doesn't seem right. I raised it during that meeting in the winter. Who would want it done over their ancestors? And no one could raise a hand because they wouldn't. So I proposed to the town that if not given back to the tribe, then something be done to stop activities that, in my mind, shouldn't be done. again, I don't want to take away anyone's enjoyment, opportunities for young ones to enjoy it. The citizens, the residents of the area, they use it for, walking and dogs and whatever enjoyment. But in my mind, something more can be done. I'm not thinking it's going to be an easy fix, but the tribe is just down the road. Someone can be sought out. I've talked with the town manager on occasions about things, some council people about things, but I mean, not to belabor it, but at least give it a consideration. If you haven't already, or maybe you have, I just haven't been part of every meeting, but something more can be done than just stop in the parking lot. And that was a significant site. The tribe is not used to town governments, any government stepping up for it. So that was a mark in the right direction, a step in the right direction, and more can be done. But whatever the town council can consider, I'm always available in a phone call way, whatever can be done about that. Something more can be done in my mind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, how are you? I'm known by a couple names, but I'll go with David Welch. I have property on Charlestown Beach Road. Not sure when the last time any of you were down that road, because it's kind of way off of Charlestown Road. But it's not much of a road. It's sand. It's one car wide. If cars have to pass, one car has to pull into a driveway for the other one to pass by. So I really think it would be a safety issue. I don't know how people would get down there. There's no parking on the road. There's no turnaround. You'd have to pull into somebody's private driveway to turn around. If there was a walkway, a dune bridge, whatever you want to call it, built down there. I certainly think it would be a safety issue. Most of these houses are on the opposite side of the street from the ocean, and they own the lots on the beach. So people are constantly going back and forth across that street, pedestrian-wise. People are already speeding on that road, going too fast. I mean, you really shouldn't go faster than 10 miles an hour on that road. We already have issues with trespassing. We have issues with vandalism and theft and whatnot. So I really think that would be an issue if we open this up to be, hey, here, it's not one thing if somebody walks down the street and it sounds nice to walk down the street and go over a bridge going onto the beach, but in reality, we know that's not what's going to happen. We already have people coming down there, walking through the dunes, walking over people's private walkways. It's going to put too much, I'll say, pressure on that road. It's not made like it doesn't. It ends. It basically ends in the dunes, is what happens to it. And a couple comments on things that were said here. Talking about the security guard not there anymore because they made it. Basically, what happened was that group pestered and bullied the young lady who was a security guard on the beach. I was there, and made comments on their Facebook page that were very derogatory about her. And I don't blame her. I don't blame the company for not wanting to expose themselves to that. The other thing is dune bridges. They've all been approved and permitted and built according to what they were, regardless of where they are. That's where they were built. How you doing, Conrad? He talks about houses being built back bigger. So what? Anybody could build whatever house they want on their private property. Same thing with a sign. I mean, if I want to put a sign on my property, it's my private property. I could put a sign, as long as it's not derogatory I could put unicorn parking on my property. Nobody could tell me I can't do that. And besides, Conrad already has gone and taken down the sides himself and put them in his backyard. And what did he say about the town manager? Let me see. Oh, I double dog dare him to charge me with theft for taking it. So, yeah, I got it right here.
Hey, let's keep the interaction, focused at addressing the council.
Well, he keeps chirping from back there, so. Again, I am really against this because I think it's going to be a huge safety concern. We already have issues with that. People have their pets, people have their kids themselves walking back and forth across the street all the time. And I would urge you to go look at the road and say, hey, all the way down the end of this road, is this a great place for us to have the public coming to in masses to go onto the beach? Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Dave? Dave, first of all, I didn't get your last name. Welch, oh.
I'm a little hoarse today.
I heard it as Dave Mulch. I'm like, it couldn't be his name. But I just have a question. So what are you exactly opposed to? You're opposed to the survey piece?
Well, I mean, you could survey it, but to build a dune bridge for public access all the way down the end of a one-lane road that's sand and has no outlet, no turnaround, no parking, seems not a great idea to me.
Mm-hmm. Are you opposed to the surveying of the area so that we can determine what people's lots are? I'm just curious.
No, I mean, I have a deed filed downstairs. If you guys want to go look at it, it's there. I mean,
okay.
I mean, go ahead and survey it. I mean,
okay. I'm looking.
What would that show you? Somebody's lot.
And who owns what and where? That's all.
Correct. But I mean, that's
All
already.
right, we got an agenda item specific to this, so we'll sort of defer to that item.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
All right, anyone else in the audience wish to speak? Anybody to come on up? I'll ask again. If not, we're going to move on. All right, seeing none, we're going to move on. All right, that's going to bring us to the town manager's report.
Let them all go, I guess. Thank you for coming. Thank you.
First item we spoke about, that was the letter of appreciation from Mr. Bavona to the EMS staff. Item B, updating the town's application for the Learn 365 grant program. We're supposed to have what that is, that's a state initiative with grant money being afforded so that students can learn year-round instead of just 180 days. The Johnny Cake Center signed up for a grant. The town is a pass-through for that grant. They were awarded $325,000 by the governor last week, which is a good sign. They're going to have a program. The signing was supposed to be on August 21st. It's been postponed to September 15th. Item C, we'll give you, I'll have Luke come up, Luke Murray, Deputy Town Manager, talk real brief about the school building committee and the referendum that's on regarding the $125 million bond.
First question, do you miss being chair?
I was going to say, former chair, right? Thanks for the time, I appreciate it. Just to give you a brief update, so the school building committee is active. We had a meeting on August 3rd. Items discussed, as you may or may not know, I am now the outgoing chair. Kate Massanetti did step up and was voted in as the new chair of the committee, and I'm sure she'll do a fine job in that role. We delayed any further votes. We had a close quorum there at the meeting, and we wanted to give everyone the opportunity to step up. So the next votes for vice chair and secretary will be held at the next meeting, which is, I believe is expected to be the 24th at this point. So we will not have one this week. It'll be next week. Other things that are going on, we reviewed a new website. So that will be housed by our new owner's project manager. It is a separate site. It'll be redirect from the town site and the school site. And the reason is it really is an exclusive site. It's going to be much more visual, graphic. It'll have all the information that we already have on the current site, but be considerably improved to be a little bit more robust. The idea here is to inform. We've said that along the way. And part of that is having a website that's user-friendly. Not that our current one isn't, but it's got a lot of information, more of a governmental format, I'll say. This is meant to be more of a user-friendly, directed format. So we're going to continue to tailor that, and that will be rolled out in the next week to start. We're actively working on the architect and engineering RFP, and I expect that to be coming up at the next meeting as well. And I'll defer to Susan. She has some updates with regards to the bond that I'm sure she can fill you in as well. So did I put you on the spot, Sue?
That's all right. The Board of Canvassers met last week and certified the question that you voted to send to the Secretary of State's office. That has been sent to them, and they have already updated their website to indicate that we are having a special election on November 7th. Just this afternoon, I updated our voter information page on the town website. Gives a lot of information about voting, mail ballot deadlines, voter registration deadlines, early voting. We are awaiting approval of our requested 3 polling places for the entire town. We would combine districts. Voters would have to go to the district they are assigned to, which is a change from the last school bond referendum we had, where anyone could go to any polling place to vote. They're no longer allowing vote centers, so we are going to be assigning voters to a specific polling place. The 3 we have recommended are West Kingston Elementary School, Matunic Elementary School, and the high school, which are geographically spread throughout town.
All right, thank you.
So I'll take any questions that you have.
Before I get to the 3 you know are coming, is it part of the school buildings committee's responsibility to put it out there to the voters about reassigning polling places?
So we view it as a responsibility to get the information out, to assist with that effort. Is that our primary responsibility? No, that is a town function for the bond.
There also will be a collaboration with the school building committee and the town finance department to produce the voter information booklet, which has to be done every time there is a referendum where we are requesting authority to borrow money. So that will be prepared and published in the newspaper, put on the website, available at the town hall and the libraries. That won't be close until closer to the election.
The good thing about having town officials on the committee is that we're intertwined, so.
So the 3 questions that you're used to get out ahead of the internet trolls, can it still be built for $125 million as we voted on back in March?
So I'm supposed to be meeting with the owner's project manager. I believe we have a meeting this week to discuss that very topic, because they're also reviewing our budget. And so as far as I know, yes, but again, what we're continuing to do is we worked with the architect already, the independent cost estimator. The owner's project manager needs to weigh in now and say, do they agree, and any potential pitfalls. So we're going to continue to go through that process. We'll be honest and upfront as information rolls out.
Second question, there have been a number of communities who are also doing building that encountered difficulties with labor and materials. Do you have any sense of where we're at with that?
I do not. Again, that's going to be born out of those same meetings that we're going to be having coming up.
And the third question is about interest rates, but I'll save that for Brian at some point.
Yeah, Brian and I are going to be working closely together as we move forward, looking at the financial picture, and also we owe the voters an updated projection of what this will look like. Again, market conditions continue to vary, so we'll do our best estimates relative to the bond, and then, what occurs beyond there. Just as a reminder to everybody, they're giving approval potentially to the council to go to the next step, which is to roll out the bonds. So we have multiple steps before we'd actually implement and discharge those bonds.
I'm not looking for you or Brian to be Jay Powell.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Jim, the last bond referendum in 2021, I just wanted to, the town manager had a large role in developing that voter information guide. I just want to put that, ask that. Who will be actually putting out the guide? Will it be you and Brian, or will it be the committee? It's the town directly. It's the town. I'm just,
Well, I haven't been down that road yet, but
Okay.
so If Susan's saying it's the town, then we'll get it done like we
Okay.
normally would.
So just, not that it's going to be this way, because it's a very different situation, but the guide needs to be factual and not opinion. And I think there was some dissent about what was developed, so I just want to just say it. Of course, it will be informational and factual and not biased, correct?
As Dragnet said, just the facts, ma'am.
Right.
That's all we're giving out, is the
And,
facts.
and
No exaggeration.
There's
no.
actually a state law that
Yeah.
requires that. There's a state law that says we can't be an advocate one way or another.
Yeah.
We just present the facts.
yeah,
Let
yeah.
the chips fall where they may.
And I don't consider people internet trolls. I call them residents. So I do applaud people that pay attention to projects and ask lots of questions. I know that some people can come from a very skeptical and negative point of view, but I don't consider them trolls. I consider them people that live in the community. Sorry. I'm not sorry for saying that.
Just to advise on that too, Susan's already shared the last bonds, pamphlet that went out, and our goal will be to align the messaging with the website. While it's not a school building committee role, it will cross over because we want to be consistent with the information provided. And we've said consistently throughout, that is, as the town manager said, just the facts.
Thank you.
And that is anticipated to proceed on, so.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, thank you, Luke. Thank you, Jim. It's going to move us now to the town solicitor's report.
You asked that our office look at other towns whereby a town council adopts a budget in lieu of a financial town meeting, but there's also the ability of the electors or voters of the town to override that budget that's approved by the town council at a referendum. So we did do a survey. We came up with 4 towns that had provisions similar to South Kingstown's, where FTM no longer exists and where the electors are given the ability to change the decision of the town council in a referendum. And to begin with, as you know, of course, in South Kingstown, under our charter, it takes 200 electors to sign a petition to set up the referendum process. They're using Secretary of State, the most latest registered voters list. South Kingstown has 20,644 voters, so 200 vote threshold is approximately 1%. So that's what we do here in South Kingstown. As for the other towns, Charlestown also requires 200 signatures, but because its population is much lower, only 6,700 voters, that is equivalent to a 3% threshold. In Bristol, again, the council adopts the budget, 400 signatures are required. That equates to 2.7% threshold. In North Kingstown, which has a population actually similar to South Kingstown's, it's almost 22,000 as opposed to 21,000, their percentage is 3%. And then finally, we looked at Westerly, and Westerly also requires 3% of their registered voters to trigger a referendum. So from our informal calculations, and again, we base this on Secretary of State statistics of how many voters there are in each of these towns, at the 1% of registered voters level, South Kingstown appears to be the lowest. Most towns are at 3%, 2.73% for all the others. Now, if you wanted to change that 200 or 1% level, you can only do that through a charter amendment, and only the council has the ability to put a charter amendment on the ballot. So I'm open for any questions you may have.
Can we ask about Narragansett? What do they do?
We didn't look at Narragansett, and I don't know if Jim remembers what they do, but
Back when I was there was a set number.
It was what?
It was a set number of signatures.
Mm-hmm.
That was 6-7 years ago. I don't know what they do now.
Okay.
I'm more than happy to update you at the next meeting to see if, again, we tried to look at charters that were very similar to SK's, so I can certainly give you Narragansett in addition to the ones we found, North Kingstown, Charlestown, et cetera.
So I had a couple of questions about the charter review that we did 20 years ago. So that took, I remember participating. I've been a resident since 1997, and I remember going to the high school and participating. What was the number that was the quorum to actually adopt or change the budget at that time? Was it 50 people in the room?
You mean at a financial town meeting?
Yeah, when we had a financial.
It would have been, to start the meeting, Susan's saying she thinks it was about 200, and most towns do have a threshold of about 150 or 200 to permit the financial town meeting to legally do its business. But it's a guess.
Yeah, I thought it was a very small number, and then the charter review sort of replaced the way we adopted the budget, and we put in the meetings. There's 2 back-to-back budget meetings. It was supposed to sort of provide more public input into the budget process. I don't necessarily think that we have that. Those budget meetings in April are kind of a town staff and us show.
Yeah, a lot of towns have migrated away from the financial town meeting because what happens is that a small number of people, whatever the quorum is, determine the entire budget for the entire town, as opposed to representative government council doing that. And I think there are only 7 or 8 communities left in Rhode Island that still have an FTM. Most have moved away from it.
I was on the
You was on the
Charter Review Commission in 2006. The intent was to front-load public input back to December and January. And as you all know, that's when the meetings actually start, and it has an opportunity for people to hear what the proposed budgets are as they're being developed. You're not wrong that most years we don't get that much public input. It's usually if there is some major problem.
Right.
And that's similar I represent Bristol. Bristol has a very similar process. They have a series of evenings where they have budget hearings, just like you do, obviously open to the public. And you're right, people don't show up unless there's a burning issue going on in the town. They leave it up to their representative government council to make the decision.
So in 15 years, we've had 3 budget referendums. One was...
Is that statement correct, Mike?
I think so. I think it was 2009. I think it was 2020, and then just most recently. I've lived here. I voted every time.
Susan thinks that's correct, yeah.
So the 2009 was, I think we had some of each. We had, the 2020 was razor thin. It was 17 votes and 34 votes. This one was skewed the other way, a landslide to maintain the budget. And then the 2009, the budget was maintained, but it wasn't as huge, overwhelming landslide. So we've had a variety. We've had 3 in 15 years. I don't enjoy them as much as anybody, but I do think the process in the intent was to engage the public in having their say. So I don't know if changing the number changes anything except I think it actually creates a priority in our work that we've actually not discussed. And I personally feel that the priorities of working on affordable housing policies, working on land use policies, we can talk about it or we can do it. And so I don't want to distract us from that important work to change the charter to add some signatures to the process. So I'm open to hearing what you have to say, but I'd never want to lose, I don't want to stop talking about affordable housing and the need, because we talk about it and how it impacts us. We probably talk about it on the weekends when we have barbecues with our friends or we go out in the community. So I just don't want to shift away from a goal that we all talk about and other goals ahead of us.
So I think that when budget referendums come about, and there's been 2, at least 2, during my tenure on the council, I think it's good to give the people the opportunity to sort of dissent to the budget that the council has adopted. But I also think, you know, evidence of this last one, it created a big distraction. People didn't want to have to go out of their way to do this, and it distracts away from priorities like municipal court stuff, rental registration stuff, affordable housing stuff. And our threshold, signature threshold is clearly low. I mean, the report here points out it's probably the lowest. Is it the lowest in the state? I don't know, but it's clearly...
From the communities we looked at, it is the lowest.
There's a big disparity between the communities identified that are similar to us and what ours is. And I think it should be revised. I think it should be increased. 3% looks like a good one. I want it to be increased to a point where it's not unbearable by someone to reach that point, but it's not as easily reachable. We could even extend the amount of time. I think now it's 2 weeks to get the signatures. If we moved up the date for the budget adoption and give them, I don't know, 3 weeks, but increase the signatures, it's almost like a little give and take. I think that's reasonable.
I just want to point out that it's the same to add. And in a different situation, you create a lot of hurdles for someone to add to the budget too. So it's like, be careful what you wish for, because you're tweaking something that then would then become a hurdle for someone else. So
we as a council have belief in our budget. We adopt it because
Right.
we believe in it.
Oh, yeah.
We think it's a good budget. We think it's smart. We believe it supports the town operations. And things like this, they have that right, and this still gives them that right. But the threshold is so low. We see that. The report reflects that. And in my personal opinion, I think it needs to be revised up.
And it was public interest that started this. There were people, residents, complaining about the fact that they came out and had to vote on the school budget that the school committee and the town council unanimously approved because of 200 people signing a petition. That's what started the discussion to begin with. Some of the people coming into the voting place on June 6th were annoyed. Why am I here? So there's that public input too, and I have to disagree. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can take up housing issues. We've got a landlord registration package coming. We've got short-term rentals coming. We are dealing with the issue, and they're not mutually exclusive. We can do more than one thing at a time.
happy to look at a whole charter review commission. There are a number of other pieces of the charter we could look at.
Also, this gives the people the opportunity to think it through and decide whether it should be increased or not. No action on our part leaves it at 200. Action to put this out for them to vote lets them to decide, do we want it increased or not? That's democracy, right?
Well,
There are a number, I think there are a number of charter changes that we could look at. Do you want to look at a whole thing, or you just want to do a tweak? This is, to me, it's really not a tweak. It's really changing how democracy gets operationalized in South Kingstown. So
I think it's important that we look at the demographics of the town, and a number of 200 signatures in 2006 may have represented like 3% of the population, say, but now it's like 1%. So I think that we need to, we can't say that our town is the same as it was in 2006. It's grown tremendously. And I agree with Mike. I heard a lot of complaints from people, with the referendum, that it was, thrown up at the last minute, at the end of the year. It was very disruptive to people, caused a lot of hardship and anxiety. I just think that we need a higher threshold, and that we should be more in line with other communities so that we're balancing the needs of various people.
it takes 1,000 signatures to run for governor. It takes 50 signatures to put your name on the ballot in South Kingstown to run. I do think to go so high, it's higher than it is to put your name.
But it should
run
be
against
more
you.
than just one person getting the signatures. Like, if it's something that a number of people believe in, then we're going to all work together to get the signatures. Whereas, I I just, I think I heard feedback from people that they didn't really understand what they were signing. So there was a lot of remorse after the fact that the information that was presented was not really accurate. It was one thing, and I just feel that we need to be more reflective of the population.
So, there's no action taken tonight.
Nope.
Just sort of vetting out based on our analysis given by the solicitor. And we'll continue to work through this. Give us an update next time on Narragansett.
Right, and you can set a special election on a charter change, or it can be at a general election, just so you.
So just to talk about procedurally how it would go down, we first issue a notice of a public hearing. No? All right, let's talk through.
It'd just be an agenda item. It would be an agenda item. It would not have to.
No public hearing needed.
No public, it's an agenda item like any agenda item that you vote on. It's not like an amendment to a zoning ordinance, which requires a public hearing.
So no state authorization.
You've already got the authorization through
All we would need to do is put it on a new business.
new
vote
business
on it.
item. Correct.
Wow.
So,
Susan wants me to point out to all of you that, and I have no idea if you were thinking of doing this at the same referendum as the school bond issue, which is November 7th. If you wanted to do that, I'm not saying you do, September 18th is the deadline, which means you would have to decide this at your meeting on September 11th. If that's not the case, you can either call for a special election at some future date, or it could be at a general election, obviously in 2024, November of 2024. So just so you're aware.
may I ask you a
For what it's
question?
worth, I think that would be rushing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, may I ask you, do you think there's a problem that you're trying to fix by changing the charter? There's a problem?
I think there's a concern over the low threshold, and we're addressing it by putting it on the ballot to allow those who are concerned or not concerned to vote for or against. That's it. So, we'll continue to think about it.
I will give you an update. I'll look into Narragansett.
All right, thank you, Mike. All right, it's going to bring us now to communications. 12A is a letter dated August 1, 2023, from David Flanders tendering his resignation from the Conservation Commission effective immediately.
I move that we accept David Flanders' resignation and we thank him for his service on the Conservation Commission.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. It's going to bring us to item B, an email dated August 6, 2023, from Casey Moran requesting the town install secure bike racks for public use. Casey, if you're here, I invite you to come on up. If not,
I did speak to her. And I connected her with Kenny Burke, so she's on that, or
all right.
talking.
So perhaps a motion to refer this to the BPAC.
Sorry, so moved.
All right, we got a motion
A second.
and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that passes. It's going to bring us to item C, a resolution adopted July 24, 2023 by the Charlestown Town Council in support of the Coastal Resources Management Council designated the Sand Trail as a state right-of-way to the shore. Jim, can you walk us through us, or Mike Ursillo? What's happening here? It's a little short one. You can read it quickly if you need to.
It's similar to what we've asked CRMC to do, is looking at, a street in terms of whether or not it should be declared as a right-of-way. And CRMC always asks for input from the public. And I think Charleston simply sent this out to everyone saying, hey, we're in support of CRMC declaring this, If you want to also add your support, you can, or you can just file it. It's obviously not affecting the town of South Kingston.
All right. Is this being litigated currently? Do we know that?
Say again?
Is this being challenged currently, or are we unaware of that?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. All we know is that Charlestown passed this resolution referring it to CRMC, asking for it to be cleared a right-of-way.
When I read it, I thought the wording was a little confusing. It sounds like what they're asking for is essentially condemnation and taking.
I mean, if you read the therefore, the Charleston affirms its desire to see CRMC's right-of-way designation process for Sand Trail proceed consistent with the public's right to access. So someone in town, and the council agreed, wants to allow this to be a public access.
All right, what do we think?
I mean, they do what like a lot of councils do. They sent it to their state reps, and they've also sent it to every city and town in the state of Rhode Island. You see these all the time.
Motion that we put item 12C on file.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Due to the sort of non-clarity of what they're saying and the fact that it doesn't affect South Kingstown, I think it makes sense to just sort of place on file. But all in favor? Aye. All right, that passes. Item D, an email dated August 6, 2023, or August 8, 2023, from Conrad Furla, proposing the town undertake a public access improvement plan for the Charlestown Beach Road shoreline. Nate Merrill, come on up.
Good evening, council, staff. I'm Nate Merrill, 186 South Whedon Road, Matunic. So the previous speakers, I hope, motivated why some improvements in this area are needed in terms of public access. I'd like to talk about some of the specifics and how we would get from, just a publicly put towards you plan to doing some actionable items. So to summarize the problem, we have a series of rights-of-way that have been lost over the years, and yet a bunch of signage as you try to get to them, discouraging access down the road, down the path, no beach access past this point. We may not be able to rectify false signage on private land. We absolutely can rectify false signage on public land, but we need to know what land is public and what land is private, which is why the survey is asked for. The survey is probably the largest expense item on here. There's not necessarily a budget for surveying roads for public access purposes that I know of. So those two items, 1 and 2, of surveying the road itself and the town-owned property, to me speaks towards seeking a grant for it. And a resilience grant, NOAA resilience grant, this is spot on, both public access and shoreline planning. So I'd suggest potentially looking into what grants are possible for that if the town doesn't have funds to put towards that. Marking signs, or signage of already existing rights-of-way. So those, that's item 3. Many of those would be hard to find without a survey. Some of those are quite obvious and unsigned. And so I would suggest, short of the survey, just getting what we know exists, signed with town right-of-way signs. So that's item 3. And I would also add item 7 and 8. So those are the CRMC designated rights-of-way. There's actually only 4 in town. 3 of them are in this area, and the other one's that walkway in Matunic that gets you to East Matunic. Why would the town have to go sign a CRMC right-of-way? Well, CRMC would say, we don't maintain these. In fact, they should at least sign them. So asking CRMC to sign them is good, but waiting for them to do that, I think, is a poor strategy, if anybody's ever asked CRMC to do something like this. But we can sign it ourselves. We do that because it's in our harbor management plan. It's also a town right-of-way. It's an intersection of a paper road and a town road. Suggesting adding signage is a low fruit that we can do quickly. Dune bridge. So it doesn't have to be a dune bridge. A path through the dunes would make sense there. The history there, though, was that there was a dune bridge as late as 2010, which is shown in our harbor management plan survey of those rights-of-way, and then it was gone potentially sometime after 2010. By the 2020 satellite images, it's gone. So there's a bunch of private dune bridges, I think, for sensitivity to the dunes, yet the public one was lost, and that spot's a very narrow spot between the beach and the road. So it doesn't have to be a dune bridge. It could be a path, but make it easy for the public to see, marked and obvious, so people can make it from the road to the beach without trespassing on private property, which is a sensitivity to the nearby neighbors. So leave you all with a question, I guess. How do we do the easy stuff now? Is that something, at first I was like, do we even need a town council to say, go sign our right-of-ways? That seems like a primary function of our government. Can we do that now? How does this work?
All right.
So,
We're going to refer to the manager on this. A lot of this has to do with costs and what's our ability to just sort of put up signs to sort of indicate right-of-ways.
So the state, CRMC has taken the lead on this new law, this beach access law, and myself, the solicitor, and the police chief went to this meeting. It was held in Charleston with all the regional, Westerly, Charleston, Narragansett, and North Kingston, and so forth. So, you know, we are addressing these issues that have been coming up at this meeting. But specifically to this, I'll have Rich Bourbonnais come up. We do have a budget, a small budget, for surveying roads, but it is costly, and you know, that's something, once we receive this agenda item, this communication, I did speak with Rich, and I'll let Rich, and Mike Stack is here as well, who's our resource officer. He's dealing with this, as he's the front line dealing with this.
So, you know, generally speaking, I think we all agree. There's no question that we need some survey down there, and we've had that on our radar for many years. And I'll elaborate on that in a second, but just a little bit of background. Charlestown Beach Road was accepted in about 1936 or so. There is a pretty solid deed description that was, as part of that acceptance, it included the deed description and also an inclusion of everybody on the road, everybody that was affected, all the homeowners. There were, you know, it was a different type of home setup down there at the time, but all the property owners, they were all listed in the minutes from the town council meeting at that time. I think it was 36 or 30. It couldn't have been 38 because it might have been all washed out at that point. It is very clearly a public road. And there's no question in our mind, and we find signs down there all the time. Every time we see them, we tug them out. There was one that I tried to pull out myself maybe about 8 months ago that was over near the entrance, and I ended up having Highway go down and pull it out. We're doing it on a regular basis. In fact, just this week I had a conversation with Charlestown where there was a sign indicating that it was a private roadways, and I said, well, listen, it's not, and we've cleared it all up. I think it was more of a mistake than anything else. So we are actively trying to keep track of these things, but they're happening as quick. And I want to add, though, but signs like this, just a funny note, but there is another neighborhood in town, and it's not a coastal neighborhood, but somebody in that neighborhood has a connection with a sign company. They are actually putting out signs that are MUTCD type signs, real articulate signs where you have only in the front of certain homes where it says no parking, you know, stuff like that. So we're pulling them out all the time. That's all over town, so it's not a problem that's isolated just to these areas, and we're actively staying involved in that. But and I understand the dive into the harbor management plan, and Mike Stack can talk more about that. I really don't know a whole lot about it, but I think even a further, deeper dive would point out that in the CIP from this past year, from the 23-24, we do show funding for 24-25 straight through the next 5 years because it's a 6-year plan. So we did include funding for right-of-way and monumentation survey specifically for this. And this came up, and John Schock had talked to me about this years ago, was specifically Charlestown Beach Road. I mean, it is a sand road. If you haven't been down there much, it is a sand road, exceptionally narrow, not good for traffic, but it gets a lot of pedestrian traffic. Walkover structure is a great idea. Nobody has any problem with that, and it's actually short dollars for a walkover structure. Many of the walkover structures down there now have been there for eons. I've looked back at aerial photos, and a lot of them show up. Many of them, some of them new, but I would say a majority of them have been there forever. And I've had these discussions with our building official about these walkover structures. I say, well, but they're they're effectively on town property, because I believe the road has now been pushed all the way over to the northern boundary of that road because the dune has encroached. These walkover structures go over the dune. They're in the town property. Any sign on that side of the road is in the town property. If it's on the private property against the ocean, then I would suggest you can't even see it from the road because of the dune. But I've had extensive conversations with the building official here, and he's well aware of these structures and the signage problems. And the only connection I can make with the walkover structures, and I understand they're on private property, is if you had a property in town that has a walkway going from the front door out to the street, well, there's a portion of grass, usually about 10 feet, that is town property. It's effectively the same thing. They own the property on this side. They have a walkover structure getting over from the roadway over to their property that's beachfront or whatever it is. And that's sort of the way I equate. So I understand they're in town property, but there is a reason for it. The state does not want us walking, everybody meandering through these dunes. It really is detrimental to the dunes. And I've actually, as in a previous life, I've permitted a number of these types of walkover structures. They're really simple to get through, and I think that we could have that discussion with CRMC. I have no problem with that. But I really do want to emphasize that it is in our budget, and it's $15,000 for next year. That's a great way to get started. Charlestown Beach has been on the radar for many years, and I think that Mike Stack and I have talked about this at length about Charlestown Beach, and perhaps that would be one of the first stops. I'm sorry, go ahead. I can go on, but why don't you go ahead, Iva?
So what I like about the suggestion in the communication item is that we explore some grants and that we leverage our town money and try to get some grants. So how likely is it, I don't know if you've had a chance to talk to the grant writer, if they've...
We have feelers out there looking for that. I'm not so certain that there are going to be grants, but we'll if they are, we'll find them.
Well, I don't even know if you need to find them. I bet Nate and Conrad are going to start pushing over links to stuff, but I mean...
A couple of conversations.
I'm going to add just to that, but I would suggest that if we were to tie something to a resiliency type plan or something like that, then there's certainly dollars for that. That would be, I think, the only way we might be able to find.
Thank you, Conrad. Thank you,
There's $1 billion in the Inflation Reduction Act for coastal cities and towns for climate change adaptation.
Right.
It seems to me the survey work might very well fall under that. I've had a couple of conversations with Reed's office and White House. They're both very interested. I don't know if you've seen anything yet coming out.
We saw a $240 million EPA type grants coming out. So, like I said, I'm not exactly sure for this specifically there's a grant. Right. But like Rich said, if there's something tied to coastal resiliency or some type of EPA grant. But we have our grant writer looking at them.
This is a town road, so we do plow this, right?
It's a private.
Yes, we do. We maintain this road and plow it. In fact, I was down there the other day. There was a driveway that was a little bit depressed because people are using it as a turnaround. It is a really tough road for vehicular traffic. In fact, you can't even pass two cars side by side. So, but it's a fantastic spot for pedestrian use. It'd be nice to have a parking facility, but I don't know that that'll ever happen.
On the signage issue, Mike, when we talked about this before, wasn't there part of the bill that passed the legislature saying CRMC and DEM are responsible?
Yeah, that's with regard specifically, though, to the new law that was passed, making the 10 feet from the seaweed line. I think what's being referenced in this communication is already existing right-of-ways where the signs just aren't there anymore.
Since the law passed, what I've seen is people are starting to talk about horizontal access, meaning along the shoreline, versus vertical access, which is to the road and further out.
So, Rich, I want to ask you, of the $15,000, what is that specifically for in the upcoming budget?
Well, it hasn't been appropriated yet because it was projected for the 24-25 year. But it's something that we'll certainly be talking about. We capital has already begun, so we'll be here and requesting those dollars. So that would be, it was specific to right-of-way monumentation, and it goes back to the management plan that's already been, and that's really where it came from. And so for monumentation and survey and public marina special management district. So it can be used throughout town, but it can be used throughout town for some of these rights of ways that we just don't even know. They're difficult to even find. So, we've specifically we're purposefully trying to address these And this was the way to do it, was to project out for, and then the following year is 25 grand, and we do another 100 grand over the next few years. So we're going to try to piecemeal it.
It's for surveying and what else? Can you clarify that?
Monumentation. Oh, I'm sorry, monumentation. So monumentation would be marking the corners of different areas. Now, what we've done, and like I said, we've gone out and pulled out signs, and Jim's aware of this because I've talked to Jim a number of times about this, but we've gone and pulled out signs, and what we've done is we've gone from some of the monumentation on some of the existing homes on the other side, because they make improvements. They got to mark the corners. So we can measure from that. We know it's a 50-foot right-of-way, so we can tell pretty clearly that these signs, some people are placing. The little speed signs, when people say, please slow down, those things, we don't care about those. We care about the ones that are telling people just a false narrative, and we don't want to see that. So monumentation. But monumentation is difficult on a road like this because it is continually washed over. So we have to have a bigger discussion about what that means. We're not going to put little granite markers out there. It's just never going to work. They'll disappear in the sand in a heartbeat. It may be something taller. We've got a sign down there now. It's a tall, concrete that says South Kingstown on it. It marks where South Kingstown begins, where Charlestown ends, and it's pretty effective. I see it being something more like that, so you'll see that down further. We have a number of properties down there, and if you look at our assessor's database, you'll see that there are a number of properties down there that are South County properties. There's land trust property down there. There's a whole bunch of different organizations own property down there. There are also a number of properties that are noted as tax lien properties. People just fail to pay the taxes, but they're listed as South Kingstown properties. What the real use of those is, I can't tell you, but there are a number that are specifically South Kingstown properties, and I believe that's what we may be talking about here. And there are other right-of-ways, just narrow pieces of land that allow people to walk out to the coast.
Do we regularly expend money to maintain the right-of-ways?
We plow it and we grade the road on a regular basis. It's just a beach sand road, but we do spend some money down there. Yeah.
Some of these rights-of-ways.
It's a town road.
Some of these rights-of-ways access points to the beach to get to the water, or no?
We don't see now. That's the problem, is that we don't even know where some of these places are, and that's why Mike has brought it. And John Schock talked about it. We don't know where some of these are, so that's what we really need to define, and that's what we're trying to do. The ones that we know, like at the end of Green Hill Beach Road, we've got a right-of-way there that we regularly clean that out and make sure it's clear. We've got other ones in town, and the Parks group, and Terry can speak to that, but she's very active on keeping some of these clean. The ones we know.
All right. Any other questions for Rich?
I'm sorry to beat this dead horse, but.
No, you're doing good.
Okay.
I think I would say that it's very important to a large contingent of people, shoreline access, and really protecting the public's access to the beach. So I don't think I think it's a super important topic that we need to not just give away because we get tired of trying to advocate for it. So I'm in favor of directing the staff to have the grant writer look for opportunities. If there's money to be got, we like to win and we like the money. So I would be in favor of clearly 1 and 2, trying to explore whether it's part of the match from some of the capital, but I don't want to wait until you fund it in future years, and I want to be sort of aggressive with that. I do think signage is really important. I think we have to be, constantly advocating for the rights of the community to have access, and I like that you're removing the sign. So I'm looking through your list, Conrad. So I'm up to like 4. I think the pass. I think Rich said it's an easy ask. It's not a lot of money. I think all of these things we should refer to the town staff in terms of implementation, asking for a plan of action on each of those items and a timetable, and also to direct the grant writer to explore and advocate for grants.
Yeah, I think we should leverage our grant writer to try to get the most we can for all these items. See what comes back, and then start expending what we can get. Sounds like to me.
Sounds good to me. I mean, I think a lot of what we're discussing these days is regarding, there seems to be a lot of intersection between the two big issues that we've been discussing, which is private roads and coastal access. So I think it's important that we get whatever information that we can, from surveys, and just try to really look at everything as a whole. So I'm in favor of it.
Do you think that you could come back with take the action items and put them into some sort of table and tell us a timeline and, where the progress is, and not in this, maybe later in September?
Sure, and in fact, I think what might really be helpful is that if we come back, maybe during capital or something like that, and we figure out how we can allocate some money, and then, if we start with Charleston Beach Road, I'm perfectly in favor of that, and I think Mike might be as well, but he's got other sites as well. He's really well versed in this, but I'd really like to understand what that survey is, and I think we could even have some estimated cost on what that would be. I mean, we can certainly do that. That's not a big push.
Great.
All right. Thank you, Rich. Is there a motion to this effect?
I move that we refer item 12D to the town manager and director of public works for a strategic plan implementation on the action item agendas. Action item agendas.
Which includes identifying potential grants to fund the requests outlined in this communication.
1 to 9.
All right, we got a motion.
Second.
A second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that passes. Thank you, guys. All right, we got another item here. Item E, an email dated August 9, 2023 from Susan Day Sigmund requesting that persons be notified when their communications are to appear on an agenda. All right.
Susan's still here.
Susan, how are we? Oh, you're here. Oh, come on up. Come on up.
All right.
Did you want me to read it, or it's pretty?
Oh, we read it.
Yeah, we read it.
We read it.
You already
Susan-
have it, so I didn't know if that was something that you wanted to address. It seems that it would make it smoother for you to know if people were coming, and also people who had contacted you would then feel that they were involved in the process.
So I knew you were out of town and you couldn't attend
Yes.
through a mutual friend, so I did follow up with the town manager to sort of tweak that auto reply so it's more clear. I think it does show you where the agendas can be found, and that your item, if you meet that Wednesday noon deadline, you would appear on the next one.
Okay, but there's going to be no, so if you send a letter in or an email in, there's no direct contact back to you. It would then be up to the person who writes to see if they're on the agenda?
Well, we can change that.
So we tweaked that. We've never had anyone that, usually people, when they send a communication in, they're looking at the agenda to see if it's on there, and they usually show up. But this one fell through the cracks. So now Susan is advising the person that sent the communication, and you are on this agenda.
Yeah.
Or you missed a
Simple
deadline,
enough.
you will not be
Yeah.
on the agenda.
I mean, you haven't had a reason to talk to us before, so you didn't know how it really worked, right? So,
That's correct, but I think that that's a good idea. It
Yeah.
just makes things a little smoother for everybody.
yeah.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Perhaps refer to the manager's office or place on file? What do we think?
I think, is it okay if we place it on file because we've addressed it, Susan?
It's been addressed.
It'll sound like very odd that, you, Susan. We're going to put it on file because we feel like we've adequately addressed your concerns. We've implemented better measures to address the problem
It's
that you
already been
identified.
implemented.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Do we hear that motion?
I move, we put item 13E on file.
All right, we got a motion.
Second.
A second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, it's going to bring us to item 13, appointments.
I make a resolution that we appoint Elaine Gillum to the trustees of the school funds, and a resolution to appoint Michael Henry, reappoint Michael Henry to the Library Board of Trustees.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that passes.
Council
Motion to
President,
adjourn.
may I ask which term you would like
Oh.
Miss Gillum appointed to? There is a term that expires in June 2025 and a term that expires in June 2027.
27.
Thank you.
Right. Any other appointments? We got item B here. All right, I'm going to make the appointment here in an attempt to get a 4-0 vote. I'm going to make a resolution appointing James Howe as the municipal court judge and Adam Scholes as the associate municipal court judge.
Second.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. All right, that passes 4-0. That motion is clear enough and correct that it's down, am I right?
I'm sorry?
The motion was clear?
The motion's clear, yes, you've appointed both a municipal court
No
judge and
ambiguity.
an associate judge.
No ambiguity, is that right?
No, and all I would state is that the term will begin upon being sworn in, only because to make this transition between probate judge and municipal court judge, we may hold off on the swearing in until we get through a session or two of probate court so that we can have, and we don't need the municipal court judge judging, tomorrow. I think, is it?
Right.
What is the date? Okay, yeah. Jim's just pointing out that we'll get the person appointed. We happen to have a probate court session this coming Thursday, which we need Jim to deal with, so.
Okay.
We'll work with the manager on timing. I just didn't want you to think it was going to happen tomorrow, that's all.
All right. Cool. All right, that's going to bring us to the end here.
Motion to adjourn.
We got a motion to adjourn in a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, this meeting is over. Thank you all for your time, and see you next time.